All right, everybody, it's 6 o'clock, so let's call to order the regular meeting of Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Commission on Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m. We could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, face the flag, and place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. All right, roll call. Susan Ambrose. Here. Jennifer Elliott.
Present.
Rob Firestein.
Here.
Harold Formaster.
Here.
Amelia Weinstein.
Here.
Jordan Capopiano. Here. And myself, Terry Rousseau. Here. So we have everybody a full house tonight. So moving into the first agenda item, we have a special presentation that's an update on the San Clemente Shoreline Monitoring Program.
Hi, I'll kick things off. Cecilia Gallardo Daly, Community Development Director. With me here tonight are members of our consultant team. We've got Greg Huron that will be presenting the results of the shoreline monitoring that happened this past fall. He came to you last fall to make a presentation on the kickoff of that project. So he'll go through the results of the shoreline monitoring from the fall. And then we also have Leslie Meyerhoff, our coastal consultant, and then Justin Peglow from Moffett and Nickel. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg Huron from Coastal Frontiers to provide the findings from the recent shoreline monitoring.
Can we adjust their volume?
I believe so.
It is a little
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You have it where you need it?
No, we can't hear
Yeah, I
you.
didn't hear.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Barely.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Getting there.
Can I adjust anything here, or are you working on it?
You could take it off. Hold it if that's.
Okay. Thanks, Cecilia. My name is Greg Heron. I'm with Coastal Frontiers. I'm here to talk with you today about the state of your beaches based on the findings of the Shoreline Monitoring Program, which, if you recall, was restarted in fall 2022 after about a 15-year hiatus. Next slide, please. So we'll start with some background information to provide some context, and then get in, and then talk about the condition of the beaches right now and how we got to this point. And we'll wrap up with some summary and talk about the future activities under this monitoring program. Next, please. There we go. The study area extends from Dana Point Harbor in the north to San Mateo Point in the south. It's the red box shown there. And it's essentially the very northern portion of the oceanside littoral cell. And we can think of a littoral cell as a closed coastal compartment that includes a complete cycle of sedimentation, so sediment sources, transport paths, and sediment sinks or losses. And simply put, if we have more sand coming into the system than leaving, our beaches are going to grow. If we have more sand leaving the system than coming in, our beaches are going to retreat or erode. Sources in San Clemente include natural input from rivers and streams, notably San Juan Creek. Artificial sources such as beach nourishment, that would be the upcoming Corps of Engineers project. Losses would be material loss offshore past what we call the depth of closure, which happens occasionally, and then simply just material moving south out of the region. Sand does move north and south in San Clemente, but the net direction over a year is to the south. So it can vary seasonally, but in the long term, sand is moving north to south. We have a very complex and energetic wave environment in San Clemente. You can have several north swells and south swells running at the same time at any time of the year, as well as local seas. North swells tend to be more predominant in the winter, and southern hemisphere swell more prominent in the summer season, which accounts for the differences in transport. You can get sand moving to the north in the summer, but again, over the entire year, net is going to be to the south. Water levels in San Clemente are governed mainly by astronomical tides. So we have 2 highs and 2 lows every day of varying magnitudes. We can have some short-term anomalies lasting days to months associated with things like storm surge and El Nino. So storm surge on the west coast tends to be very minor, about a half a foot or so on a large storm, as compared to, say, the east coast or Gulf Coast, where you hear these reports of 7 and 10 foot storm surges associated with tropical storms. We get a super elevation of water levels of a half a foot to a foot or so during El Niños, strong El Nino years, and that can last for a period of several months. So in a sense, that's almost a preview of sea level rise for a short period. In terms of sea level rise, the measured long-term sea level change or gradient in the area is only 2 millimeters per year. So over a 100-year period, that's about 7/10 of a foot. And then, of course, we have these projections of accelerated sea level rise that we use for longer-term planning and whatnot. Next slide, please. So the shoreline monitoring program is designed to measure changes in the shore zone and provide a basis to evaluate the impact of human intervention, such as a nourishment project, and natural events like an El Nino. The data has been used to support numerous projects in the past and currently, notably the Corps of Engineers Nourishment Project that will be upcoming, and the Nature-Based Adaptation Study, which is currently underway. Next slide. So the program itself consists of beach profile surveys at 12 sites between Dehaney State Beach in the north and Cottons Point in the south. The surveys are conducted in the fall and spring, and that corresponds with the beginning and end of the winter wave season. So at most Southern California beaches, we would expect to see the narrowest beaches in the spring after an energetic winter season, and wider beaches in the fall after a more quiescent season. We've kind of got a mixed bag in San Clemente. Several of the beaches here, notably like T Street and down in the State Beach area, they follow this typical seasonal pattern. But we do have some that behave contrary to this, where they're actually wider in the spring than they are in the fall. And that's some places up in Capo Beach, down by Mariposa Point at the DJ Court train site. Behave oppositely to the normal trend. So of those 12 sites that you see on the map, 6 of them were used by the Corps of Engineers as part of the Coast of California Storm and Tidal Wave Study in the early 1980s. And then we helped the city establish a monitoring program in 2001 where we adopted those historical transects and added 6 more to increase the coverage and the knowledge base in the city. So some of these sites have data going back almost 40 years. So that's a really nice data set. So despite some gaps in the data, we can learn a lot from this information. That's what we'll be talking about today. Next slide, please. Okay, so that brings the question, what's a beach profile? Well, it's essentially a cross-section of the beach measured from the back beach offshore to a depth, in this case, about 40 to 50 feet of water. And this cartoon just shows how we collect that data. We have 2 crews working at the same time. One, the land-based crew, is using traditional survey equipment and a rod person that's swimming out and collecting data out to beyond the surf zone. And then a boat starts offshore, again at about 40 or 50 feet of water, using GPS and precision echo sounder. And they collect data to just outside of the surf zone, so those 2 data sets match up and we'll get this full cross-section of the beach. Next slide, please. So here's an example of some of those beach profiles, and this is at South Dehaney State Beach. The orange line that's furthest out is the condition of the beach in October 1986. The gray shaded area shows the range of all the profiles that we measured for the first city monitoring program between 2001 and 2007, and there's 2 representative profiles that are shown there in red and blue inside of that range. And the black line is October 2012, where we are today. So you can see at this particular location, we have lost a lot of beach and a lot of sand out to depths of about 15 feet of water. And the mean sea level shoreline has retreated about 200 feet in the last 35 years. This is again at South Dehaney State Beach. Okay, next slide please. So let's talk about the condition of the San Clemente beaches in fall 2022, the first survey that we've done after this 15-year hiatus in the city's monitoring program. We'll look at the net changes in beach width along the reach, and then we'll step back and look at how we arrived at this condition. Next slide. So this slide is showing fall 2022 beach widths at each of the 12 monitoring sites. So you can see on the bottom there's the map, and Doheny State Beach is at the far right, and each of the transects are shown there. Cotton's Point is on the far left. The blue line is the fall 2022 mean sea level beach width. The gray shaded area is the range of beach widths that have been measured from all available data from 1983 to 2006. So that's where the beach has historically been for that period, 1983 to 2006. So immediately what we see here is that we have historically narrow beaches at Doheny State Beach, that's the right-hand side, so we're falling well below that envelope of past conditions. And that continues on into the North Beach area. When we get closer to the pier, so from Linda Lane to San Clemente State Beach, the beaches are actually kind of in the middle or upper end of that historical range, so doing pretty well by comparison. And then at the far end, at Cotton's Point, well below the gray area, so much narrower than anything we've seen before. Next slide, please. So let's now look at that in terms of actual changes. On the left-hand side are the changes between 1986 and 2022. And these are just the 6 historical Corps of Engineers transects that go back that far. So red is indicating erosion, green is indicating accretion. And we can see in the Doheny area on the right-hand side of the first chart, losses of up to 200 feet over that 35-year period. Once we get into the Capistrano, Pier area and San Clemente State Beach, you see some modest gains or some relative stability over that 35-year period. Chart on the right showing the same type of information, but we were going from 2001 to 2022. So this allows us to bring in all those other transects that we established for the city in 2001. We see a similar outcome with these losses occurring over that 2-decade period from Doheny State Beach in through North Beach. But when we get to, say, Linda Lane, T Street, and down to San Clemente State Beach, we see these gains of somewhere between 25 and 55 feet that have been maintained over that 2-decade period. And then at the far end, Cotton's Point, losses of about 150 feet over the last decade. 2 decades, I'm sorry. Next slide, please. So now I thought it would be useful to kind of step down through some of these beaches and look at how we got to today. So this is Doheny State Beach, the northern part. And this actually, I have some bonus data in here too, because it's showing the beach widths derives from the profile data that have been collected, but also as part of your resiliency study, we went through and found a lot of LiDAR data where we're able to extract shoreline, so it kind of fills in some of those gaps along the way that we didn't have in the past. So here at Doheny State Beach, the thing that jumps out the most is you've had these really wide beaches after the 82-83 El Nino, the 97-98 El Nino, and in 2005, which was a really heavy rain year. So this is just material coming down from San Juan Creek. And so you can see in 2005, where we have a lot of data, that material took about 2 years or so to disperse from the San Juan Creek area. But despite these reversals that we get from these sediment being delivered to the coast, the trend is negative. So, the beaches have reduced, almost 300 feet over this nearly 40-year period. Okay, next slide. Moving down the beach to Shore Cliffs. This is just north of the Capo trailer court. And we can see that we had this trend of increasing beach widths from the 80s through about 2016. And then sometime after 2016, we kind of take a nosedive. We lost a lot of beach, about 50 feet of beach or so. And you can see that in the photographs as well. Next slide. Moving to the Capistrano Trailer Court itself. There's rarely ever been much of a beach there. It's built way out onto the profile. But in the 2000s, it was fairly stable. And then again, after 2016, at some point there, we lost a fair bit of beach at this location. And in 2022, we had essentially no beach And that checks out with the photo there is taken at a very low tide where it looks like it's Beachville, and that water comes up, it's gonna be right on the rocks. Next, please. North Beach, where the restrooms and concessions are. These data only go back to the 1990s, but you can see it was fairly stable in the early 2000s. And since that time, it looks like a modest trend of shoreline loss into 2022. So the beaches are kind of a little on the narrow side historically at North Beach, despite the fact that you guys have done a couple of opportunistic nourishment programs there. Next, please. So this is DJ Court, just south of North Beach. So a lot like Capistrano Trailer Park, where you have a revetment that keeps the beach pretty much locked in there, but it's never been much of a beach at this location. But again, after 2016, that's kind of when you see this trend of a lot of losses, and we have essentially no beach there right now in fall 2022. Next, please. So we move down south of the pier to T Street. And we had some pretty wide beaches in the 80s, some losses occurring through the early 2000s. But for the past 2 decades, we've kind of had this trend of increasing beach widths. And if you look where we are in fall 2022, it's among the widest beaches on record, except for the 1 or 2 in the early 1980s. Next slide, please. San Clemente State Beach. One of the things you notice here right away is this big sawtooth pattern. These are the seasonal changes for winter to summer that we see. It's particularly pronounced down there at San Clemente State Beach. Kind of like T Street, the last 2 decades from around 2000, we've got this trend of increasing beach widths down there. And again, in fall 2022, among the widest beaches on record. Next slide, please. Far into the study area at Cotton's Point. This is where we've seen among the most changes in the entire region. So we had a trend of decreasing beach widths through most of this period from the late 90s to 2016 or so, and then it just really takes a nosedive. So we're seeing this trend of a lot of these places, sometime after 2016, sustaining a lot of losses. So effectively no beach at that site right now. You can see on the photo above, we used to be able to access this site by truck. We couldn't even walk into this site in fall or October 2022. We set up the survey instrument on a patio in a homeowner's backyard and actually had to drop the swimmer off by boat. He couldn't even get there by foot. Next slide, please. And here's the beach profile there at Cotton's Point. Again, the gray area is the range of profiles that we measured in the 2001 to 2007 period. Black's where we are today. So a lot of losses out past a depth of 20 feet. And you can kind of see that all that jaggedness on the bottom of the black line. That's probably because we've stripped all the sand away from the hard bottom below that. It's kind of showing some of that rocky bottom at that point. Next slide, please. So, in summary, we have historically narrow beaches in the north and south ends of the study area. In the region close to the pier, say Linda Lane through State Beach, we actually have beaches that are about average, maybe above average in width. So that's in itself is good news since a lot of your recreation is done there. Next slide. So for the monitoring program itself, we have several more years of surveys to conduct on your behalf. So we have two surveys a year through 2025. And so we'll see a lot of interesting things during this time. We've had a very interesting winter with a lot of rain, so I'm expecting to see some gains down at Doheny State Beach on the spring survey. And we also have this Corps of Engineers project coming online, so a lot of sand placed on the beach, and it'll be very interesting to see how long that lasts and how it benefits the shoreline. And we'll be back here each year to present the results to you. Next slide. Happy to entertain any questions.
I have one, and thank you for coming and presenting this. It's so very interesting to me. So my question is over time we've seen, some highest widths of beaches that we've seen in history, and then other areas we see very narrow and, you know, really big drops in our beach and our sands. Is there a hypothesis of why that's happening in those specific locations as opposed to along the whole coast?
I have a working theory. So we do this type of work up and down the coast from Santa Barbara to San Diego. And we were doing some work in the LA County Zuma Beach area. And what we found there, which is very much a pocket type of beach that the sand goes back and forth in, we started to see a lot of erosion on the south end of this cell in 2018 and gains on the other end. And as you started to look at it, that corresponded at the same time we switched from the warm phase of Pacific Decadal Oscillation to the cool phase. And so that changes the wave climate. So it was pretty clear that that's what was happening up in the Zuma Beach area, and it all makes sense. Down here, I'm having a harder time understanding how we have these small pockets that would act that way, but it seems more than coincidence to me that we had all of these losses occurring after that 2016 data point, which again corresponds to about the time we switched into the cool phase of Pacific Decadal Oscillation. So what that typically means is the northern hemisphere storms are coming from a more northerly angle, which would make you think, okay, well, we're going to be able to drive more sand to the south. But in a place like San Clemente, it's actually because the waves are coming from more of the north, you're more sheltered from them because you're a south-facing beach. So you're actually probably getting less northerly energy. So the balance tips to more of the southern energy that's still there. So I want to see a couple more surveys and see if this plays out as a possible working theory, and particularly if we switch out of the cool phase of PDO into the warm phase, what type of changes we might see.
Thank you. Gotcha.
I'd like to ask you about the sand that's going to be placed in September by the Army Corps of Engineers, and how long do you think it will take until we can see the effects of that sand? Will it be pretty immediate, like spring 2024, or will it take some time to see where that sand goes?
Yeah, well, you can jump in if you like, but I'll start. So you're going to see the effects of that sand immediately right where it's placed. And in fact, the beaches are going to be wider than they should be right away because it's going to take some time for them to equilibrate. So some of that sand's going to start to move offshore right away. So it's that beach is going to be built out farther than it should be right away because it has to equilibrate. And then I think what we're going to see is it's going to start to move north in the summertime and south in the wintertime, but eventually it's going to start working its way down to the south. So for similar projects that we monitored in San Diego, it could take 6 months, a year, or 2 years for it to start showing up down at the far end of San Clemente State Beach and Cottons Point.
Thank you.
Susan, you have a question?
I do. In your observations here over the time you've been down here, are you seeing the locations that have armored with the big rocks, losing some of the sand that they might have been able to save had they not armored so heavily?
Well, we saw at places like Trailer Court and DJ Court, which is, you have the beach right there, that for years it did, there was not much beach there, but there wasn't necessarily a trend of gains or losses. And then after 2016, we saw these losses. So we'll see if that turns around with a change in the wave climate or not. But there is something to be said for impounding sand behind these structures that would normally be in the system. So there could be, I'm not sure necessarily active losses from that, but passive losses from not having access to that sand.
Well, I've witnessed it, not just at 206, but 204 as well in Patel. And it's very interesting how cleverly that happens. I mean, you could be standing on the deck to walk down the stairs one week, and then with the armoring that went in there, the rocks are all the way up to the top of the stairs, and it's really causing problems.
Yeah, I mean, when you have beach erosion occurring, if it can just progress backwards, it's going to do that. When it hits a hard structure like that, it's gonna take the same volume. It needs to consume that same volume of sand, so that at that point, the kind of the profile drops in front of that hard structure.
Thank you.
You had mentioned about some of those on your timeline that you did notice, particularly during certain times when there was major rain and so forth, that it increased our sand level. Do you expect that maybe this spring in your readings you're going to get some effect from what happened this past winter here with the rains? Was this enough to do something?
Yeah,
Experience.
most definitely. I think I'm really expecting to see that at that Doheny transect where we saw those big jumps after those big rainy seasons. The key's gonna be how long does that take to move down coast, and will we see that as it comes down coast? So the last time we had this document was 2005. The first run on this program ended in 2007. So I'm not sure we were watching long enough to really understand how that was going to influence the beaches further down coast.
Yeah, so I had just a couple of questions. From your studies, is there a way to calculate the deficits of sand on each of the beaches and maybe use that as like a amount that we would sort of try to obtain from some sort of beach nourishment project in the future?
Yes, so you're effectively describing a sediment budget, right? It's your bank account of sand, and as we talked about earlier, is if you're putting more into your bank account than you're withdrawing, it's gonna grow, your beaches are gonna grow. So there's been several studies of sediment budgets and what that number would be in San Clemente. And things change over time, right? So historically, you used to get more sand from San Juan Creek. In rainy periods, you get more sand from San Juan Creek. Before the roads and the railroad were built, you actually got material from bluff erosion. But yeah, so that would be the concept that you would use, a sediment budget. You try to understand how much sand deficit you have now, so how much you need to bring in artificially to counteract that, and then again, how much you need to bring in artificially to even grow that. And you can do the same thing with sea level rise, because you're gonna lose beach with sea level rise. You can calculate using some methodologies how much sand you need to put on the beach to counteract different levels of sea level rise.
And are you aware, because I know from looking at the studies from the federal project that San Juan Creek, the last time we did a sediment budget was a while ago, I think it was like 20 or 30 years ago. Is that, or do you know, are there plans to update that or see really what's coming out or measure the amount of sand coming out of that?
The last estimates that I saw from that were from the Coast of California study, and they were estimating somewhere in the 20 to 30,000 cubic yards per year range. That's annualized. I think you're probably getting a lot in years like this,
Yeah.
and then nothing for several years. But yeah, I'm not sure that there's a plan to try to calculate that sediment load right now.
Okay. And then I think I might have asked this in the beginning about grain size, and I know that grain size wasn't really a part of the study, but to me, it really seems like it should be something that we're tracking, just because I feel like the quality of our beaches, if you've got cobble all over it, and we're seeing a change towards cobble, that's not a good thing, and it would be important for us to understand. So that's just more of a general comment that I'd really like to see the city looking at grain size when we go out and do these surveys. And then my last comment is just about Doheny State Beach, because I think in the 1970s when they put in the harbor, there was a huge amount of sand that was put, and I noticed, I couldn't really see because I don't have my glasses, but it was 1980s that you were starting. Do you think there was an effect, kind of a leftover effect from the harbor construction and how wide those beaches were?
Yeah, I think that's a good observation, and you see that in a lot of places in California because of when the coast was developed and when the population came in, kind of that post-war period. You see it in Oceanside where, they built Del Mar Boat Basin and Oceanside Harbor, so they have these really wide beaches, and then you put houses on them, and then they go away because that sand that you would put on the beaches from harbor construction it's not unlikely that something similar would have happened here. I mean, you've probably seen the photos of people driving on the beaches in Capistrano in the 20s and 30s and 40s.
Any more questions? All right, before we go to item number 2, we do have a speaker request card for 1A. Amanda?
Oh, sorry. Hello, commissioners. Yes, been a San Clemente resident for over 53 years. Anyways, for over 50 years, sorry. And, you know, looking at the pictures, you could really see the progression, but just knowing, coming back to the 70s of how Doheny used to look like, and even pictures from my dad when he was here in 1960 in Dana Point, and just seeing the change in all the construction that had gone on from back when, and all the construction in San Juan Creek bed, and how much of the construction, how much damage that caused. And but I think one of the things I wanted just to ask, it was more of a question, but maybe later on, what is the impact of San Onofre on the sand? Because from what I remember is that they use water to cool the part of the, you know, the cores. So just kind of wondering if that had any impact on, you know, Cypress Shores in that area. So that's something to consider, but I'm really glad everybody's really well versed with everything, but I just was concerned and noticed the difference while growing up, and what, you know, seeing pictures from my parents and other pictures from other people that lived here from the 20s and 30s and the other decades. Thank you.
All right, we can move into item number 2.
Question.
Oh, go ahead.
Just remarking on Amanda's comment, Amanda, that would be a great question to direct to our previous speakers. May I ask the former speaker to address that question?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
So you remember we talked about the net movement of sand in San Clemente is north to south. And so I don't think much of anything happening at San Onofre is affecting the city beaches because of the direction.
Okay. I just didn't know whether there was any tidal wave, I mean, not tide, but any wave or any kind of stabilization. And then once they decommissioned it, it was just kind of let loose going north, south.
No, I haven't looked at it in detail, but I wouldn't expect that to be the case.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Really quick, I mean, a related topic, I just want to know if anybody has any updates on the core project, if that's on track, when we could actually expect that to happen. I know it was discussed in September, then I heard that might be back. If you don't have any more information, that's fine. I was just wondering, since we had you here, I thought maybe somebody did.
Yeah, the project is on track for November of this year.
Okay.
That's the current schedule.
Okay, thanks. Well, let me ask you this then. Is there some kind of a communication plan to make sure that people in the area are aware of what's going to happen? Because I believe that involves shutting down some sections of the beaches at certain times.
Yes, that will be developed in conjunction with the Corps. There's going to be, I think, a press release next month, and that will start the communication process.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more from anyone from special presentation? Didn't know if we were just doing one presentation or if there's other people. Okay. Okay, so.
Sorry, one last. Is this report going to be available online, or can it be distributed to the commission? Or by me? I'd like to see it.
Yeah, we'll have a link to this PowerPoint presentation on our local coastal program web page online, but we have provided a copy to the Beaches Park and Rec staff, and they can provide you with a copy of it. It's okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks.
Anything else? Going once. All right, so we'll move into item number 2, approval of minutes. And before making a request for amendments or motions, we do have a speaker request card from a concerned resident.
Hi, good evening. I received about 5:30 an email from Ms. Wiley stating that there will be an overview of historical decisions at the park. So I was a little concerned because I went and listened to the audio of your last meeting, and I looked at your minutes, and sure enough, all it says is an overview of historical decisions at San Gregorio Park. When in fact, when you listen to the audio, what was asked of Ms. Wiley was that could she provide you with some ideas and suggestions because a commissioner does not feel that you have been given adequate information that applies to your decision-making on things that have been done to San Gregorio Park that should not have been done. And also to make informed decisions talking about modernizing or fixing the wrongs at San Gregorio Park right now. Now that is separate from a historical recap or whatever she was calling it. Also, the director was asked to report back at the next meeting regarding the overuse, overflow, and unsafe conditions on residential streets at San Gregorio Park. And she responded, she will be happy to report back at the next meeting. None of this is reflected in your minutes, and none of it's reflected in your agenda. And I would like to have that addressed. Thank you for your time.
All right, so are there any discussions regarding the changes to the agenda?
The minutes?
The minutes,
Yes. On coastal items, when I spoke, Commissioner Ambrose discussed involvement in the Ocean Protection Council and advised of new available programs and grant monies. So, starting.
Susan, what are you referring to? What section again?
8A, items from commission. Subcommittee reports on coastal items. Page 4. So after the Ocean Protection Council, it should say, Commissioner Ambrose discussed involvement in the Ocean Protection Council that featured new programs and available grant monies.
do you want to make that as a motion, Jen?
I want you to insert those words, please. And then on ocean conservation, update on California's marine protected areas. After the word ocean, 2 words after the ocean conservation, the word was success.
Point of question.
Yes.
Do we need to take a vote on those specific changes, or do we take one regarding
We're going
it?
to approve the minutes, so if that's the request, then that Commissioner Ambrose is requesting, then I think we can go ahead and add that to the minutes.
Okay, do we need to vote on it though?
And vote on the entire minutes as a whole.
Okay.
And then on the last one, Coastal Quest Workshop Series, I thought I added environmental community, environmental justice. So it would say Coastal Quest Workshop Series on environmental justice. That's what I had to put down in my notes. And with that, if there's no other amendments, I move that we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, so we can move into item 3, oral communications. I do have a couple of requests for speakers. So we'll take the first one, Patricia Holloway. Subject Arbor Day and Tree City, USA.
Thank you. Patricia Holloway, 40 years in San Clemente.
Arbor Day, this coming Arbor Day is Friday, April 28th. It's hosted by the City of San Clemente. It'll start at 9 a.m. at Forester Ranch Community Park. And I've been working with 4 community groups to help donate funds to purchase trees so that the city can purchase more trees for planting. The groups are Citizens Climate Education, that's the group I represent today. San Clemente Garden Club, I'm also a member of that. Sunrise Rotary, that my husband belonged to for many, many years, my husband Jim Holloway, and San Clemente Rotary. So collectively, these 4 groups have raised $4,480, enough to plant approximately 14 24-inch box trees. Randy Little told us that each tree is approximately $310. So we're hoping to get in the ground some sycamores, oaks, and pines. That was the mix of trees that they thought they would plant last time I spoke to them. We're also hoping to learn whether San Clemente, by that time, will be considered a Tree City USA. That's a designation by the National Arbor Day Foundation. In the summer of 2022, Citizens Climate Education, a group of us asked the City Council to consider becoming a tree city. The staff went back and said that the city did meet the 4 standards that are required, which is to establish a tree board or commission. I know trees are part of your purview. Establish a tree ordinance, which the city is updating currently, to budget the per capita amount for tree care, and to celebrate Arbor Day. So, so far the city submitted its application last fall. We've received regional approval, I'm told, and we're awaiting state approval, and the state's kind of behind their approval process because of all that's been going on with weather-wise in the state. Why become a Tree City USA? Why are we even doing this? It offers guidance on how cities can systematically expand their urban forest, or our village forest, as I like to call it. So it gives you a baseline of the number of trees you have in your community. We have 15,000 city-owned trees. Canopy coverage, we're at about 21%. They have you, set aside money for, which we already do, for maintenance, tree planting, tree removal, and so on. Okay, hope to see you at Tree City, our Tree City celebration on Arbor Day, April 28th. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have one more request for general oral communications. That's Amanda.
It was over a year ago, I was here, actually at the other, at the community center and speaking.
It's difficult to hear you. Can you speak up, please?
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so yes, hi, I think it was over a year ago I spoke at the Beaches Park and Recreation Committee meeting, and it was at the community center. But I brought up some concerns regarding the bathroom stalls, and glad that they were, that we have those bathroom stalls for privacy. But I spoke also regarding ADA concerns regarding San Gorgonio Park. San Gorgonio Park is not ADA compliant with the ADA bathroom stall. It is smaller, and it should be into compliance. It's my understanding, according to Hannah Thornall, when I did an ADA complaint, that it is on a transition a list, but there's no deadline. I mean, there's no date of when that's supposed to be in compliance. So we've been deficient since, 2010, 2011. So I'm really concerned regarding that. I did submit a complaint with the Department of Justice, and they sent that to the Department of the Interior, so I need to find out what's going on with that. Also, Mackbrook Park is not into ADA compliance as well, so that needs to be brought up to compliance. Also, when I looked at the agenda regarding San Gorgonio history, under the permit section, there was a lot of things that were kind of overlooked. There was a lot of stuff regarding AT&T and you know, other cell phone carriers of what they've done at San Gorgonio Park. But one of the things that I looked at was in 2017, there was repair of the restrooms, remove and replace roof over existing restroom facility, rafters and beam to replace with the same size. So there was that back in 2017. In 2015, there was more construction related to some heavy equipment. And then going back to 2013, the ADA parking that's basically to correct that. We got adjacent to the baseball courts. Going back in 2010, there was a scoreboard that was put in. Then in 2007, San Gorgonio Park renovation, the grading, partial fence, replacement light pole changes, new field light poles, new pitching tunnels, and bed and cages, and that was in 2006. And I think it finalized in 2008. And then 2003, 2004, install lighting for sports field court lighting. And so there was a lot more that you could look up under the permits that was in the agenda report. So I don't know, it was a little light on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. All right, so that concludes oral communications. We're going to move into item number 4, current community activities and updates, Part A, recreation activities and events.
Good evening, Commission. Samantha Wiley, Beaches Parks and Recreation Director. We've been a little bit busy over the last couple months. We hosted our fishing derby in celebration of San Clemente Day, which is celebrated the last Saturday of every February. We did postpone it for the first time because of the high winds and rain, but the March event turned out great. We had well over 100 kids that participated, and I had the opportunity to do some special outreach to the San Onofre Elementary School, to some of our Pendleton families, and we provided some really great opportunities and some coupons for them to come and participate as well. Many of them are San Clemente residents, so we saw a great turnout for that. Followed by the Sensational Springtacular, which just happened this past weekend. We had over 5,000 people that came to that event. That was our free egg hunts. The Spring Bunny was there. And I do want to throw a shout out to our Friends of San Clemente Foundation, who sponsored the egg hunts this year, as they always do. They were also there serving cotton candy and popcorn as well. It's always great to see them. We also had Splashtacular on this same day, which basically puts the egg hunt in the pool, and we had a great turnout for that as well. And then I just wanted to apprise the Commission of some upcoming events. There's no slow time for BPR anymore, but we have a whole slew of things coming up in the next couple of months, and you're all encouraged to come. The Earth Fest is a partnership we have with the San Clemente Garden Club. They host this at the Community Center every year, followed by the Earth Day Beach Cleanup, which is put on by our Environmental Services staff and our Utilities Department. And we round out the beginning of May with our Cinco de Mayo Fiesta. This is an annual event that's gone on for many decades at Maxford Park, celebrating the Hispanic culture and heritage in Maxford Park, with lots of live entertainment and authentic food. We finish off May with our Bike Safety Rodeo, bringing kids in to learn about e-bike safety, general bike safety, and this is in a really great partnership with our friends and partners at the Orange County Sheriff's Department, San Clemente Police Services. And lastly, we finish May off celebrating Memorial Day and that day of remembrance. We have 2 events that day. There is a 11 a.m. observance at the Community Center. It's about an hour long, and then at 2 p.m. there is another service that's held at Park Semper Fi, and that's in conjunction and partnership with the Heritage Foundation. And again, another really wonderful remembrance and observance ceremony. And that's all I have.
Any questions regarding firsthand on events and activities? Okay. We move into 4B, environmental services update.
Yeah, I do have something from our utilities director, Dave Riebensdorf. I do want to say he's planning to come in the next couple of months to the commission to provide an update on water quality and the Clean Ocean Act and where we're at with that. There's just a couple of pieces that he's trying to put into place before he comes to the commission. I want to give an update on the pure bacteriological study. Confirmatory sampling confirmed abatement of human sources in the storm drain system. These activities included outreach to residents and businesses to minimize urban runoff. They did video surveying of the public and several private laterals and lining of one segment of the public sewer system. Given the abatement, the study is in process of being completed since the area is now meeting water quality objectives. And that final timeline is to be determined, but that's really great news for that study. The next item for update is the Prima Segunda de Checa Cañada Basin, which is a tributary to the Poche Beach area. Unfortunately, Poche received a beach bummer rating as part of the Gila Bay report card. There were high bacteria discharges and low flow urban water challenges within the basin over the past year. Main cause of this was due to outages of the water quality improvement facility. Maintenance issues and replacement of the UV bulbs were not anticipated that reduced the amount of time the facility was able to operate. So this led to more than normal bacteria exceedances at Poche Beach, but our utility staff are certainly watching that and remedying it as quickly as they can. Poche was one of 15 projects selected by the House of Representatives for up to $5 million in funding. The final appropriation of funds and project acceptance will not be known for several months. Congressman Levin and our county supervisor, Katrina Foley, were instrumental in getting the project on the list. If funded, the project will divert urban runoff in this channel to the city's wastewater system. It'll reduce the TDS from approximately 8,000 ppm to 800, where the water will be treated to recycled water under Title 22 levels for use by the city as well as the Santa Margarita Water District and other customers.
Good news.
That's great news, that's fantastic.
That really is. Any questions for Sam based on 4B? No. Okay, we can move into section 5, old business. Does anybody have any old business they want to discuss? All right, so we'll move into new business, section 6.
So I'm gonna invite Pure Pride Foundation up. They have a brief presentation. This is on new business because they're gonna give an overview of their organization, but I want to also allow the commission to, as the staff report indicates, Pure Pride is looking towards revamping and redesigning our base of Pure Entry, which is a really exciting project. There's a project map included in the staff report that kind of gives you that zone. So this is the underpass that goes directly into the Pure area. And Pure Pride, along with their stakeholders and their executive board, have brainstormed and they've done some really incredible community outreach to get some feedback that this is a good project. It will brighten that area, hopefully reduce safety concerns as there's a lot of, it's intermodal, there's dog walkers, there's strollers, there's skateboarders, there's surfers, there's a lot of action, trolleys, buses, there's everything in that area. So they're gonna give an overview of their organization and then hopefully we'll be coming back in a couple months again with a little bit more of a fancy design to prepare to the commission. So this is just to introduce Pure Pride as well. So, Eileen.
Thank you, Samantha. Hi, I'm Eileen Kawas, and I'm president of Pure Pride. And I really appreciate what Samantha said. I think she did my job for me. I also, before I get started, I just wanted to say thank you to Rob. You've loaned Rob to us. I'm happy to report that Rob attends every meeting, and he always gives a valuable contribution. So we're really happy to have Rob. And Miley and Samantha, they've been with us since the beginning of time. They're not going anywhere, and we're really very grateful for all they've done. So now, a little bit about Pure Pride. It's 95 years, we're celebrating 95 years, just in case you didn't know. Next slide, please. And who are we? Pier Pride was formed in 2016 when we lost the California redevelopment funding. We are a nonprofit organization. We work in partnership with the city. We're very proud of that. And we try to fill the gaps in funding between what the city can provide and what the citizens of the community would like to see. I just want to stress, we're 100% volunteer, but I want to stress how important it is, our partnership with the city and our community stakeholders. So we don't do anything without them. Next slide, please. And it's been a thriving partnership. We've done a lot of things on the pier. Every year we've had another project. We decide with the city what that project will be, we raise funds, and then the next year the project is implemented and executed. And it's hard not to take a walk on the pier and see what we've done. I think the most prominent is the Snack Shack makeover, as well as the mid-pier restroom makeover. Next slide, please. Every year or two, we take a survey of the community and to determine if we're doing a good job, if they've noticed a difference, and what they would like to see. So survey said 86% think in the last 5 years we have improved the pier. Now these are just a few of the comments that came along. They make us so happy to hear. People love our pier. Everybody has a memory of the pier, and you can see it here. We're really, really proud that we've made a difference in the last 5 years. Next slide, please. Also, we asked of the community what would they like to see, and this helps guide how we choose our projects. As you can see, the first thing on the list is overwhelmingly the underpass drainage and lighting. And I think that the recent storms showed that we certainly have a problem down there. So the project that Samantha was talking about will start to address some of those issues. We painted the pier. We just last month gave $10,000 to the city for bird netting. And the big project that we're talking about is next in line is the Avenida Victoria landscaping. Next slide, please. Where do we get our funding from? That's a really good question. You can see here, these are our 2022 sponsors. Community businesses, people who believe in the pier, people who want to make a difference. We hold events, and I'll be sharing that with you in a few minutes. We'd love to see you at one of them. We have donations online, and we're starting to move into grants. Both the Snack Shack and the Holiday Light upgrades included grants from the state and the county. And we hope with the next project, it'll be even more. Next slide, please. So what is our next project? It will probably take us several years. We're looking into bringing this in before the 100th anniversary of the pier. And what we're talking about is the Pier Plaza. So if you've seen any of the pictures from early on, the pier, you could stand on Avenida Victoria, you could look straight down the pier and see to the end of the pier. We would like to bring those days back. So what we'd like to do is open up the area on Avenida Victoria and make it more of a sense of arrival and invitation. We'd like to clear out some of that landscaping, and it's also, we'd like to encourage more of the people to start using the underpass. Right now you can't even see the underpass because of all the landscaping. So what we're hoping is we will be directing people down into the underpass and take some of the traffic away from the ag grade crossing across the railroad tracks. That will never go away. We'll still have that for ADA purposes, but still we'd like to direct some of that traffic into the underpass. And as Samantha said, that has become a pinch point. If you've ever taken a walk down in front of the pier on Avenida Victoria, everything is going on right there. That's like the center of the universe for us. You've got bicycles, you've got cars driving by, pedestrians, e-bikes, there are strollers, just everything you can think of. 2 million visitors a day, and it makes a big difference. We're proposing that we're going to open that up and make that whole entrance a Pier Plaza. And I can't wait to show you those designs. We're working with RSM here in town. I hope you know about them. They're an international design firm over on Cabrillo. They're drawing up the plans for us. We presented the designs last night to our board, and we hope to be presenting them to you in June if you'll have us back. Next slide. As I said, we've got several fundraisers coming up and events. We hope to see you there. May 18th is our Yacht Rock. It's probably one of our most fun events. We take the Dana Pride from Dana Wharf down to the pier. It's the only view of the pier from a boat that you can get. We'd love to see you there. October 5th is our Fisherman's Sunset Dinner. Amelia was at our last one. Amelia has already bought her ticket for the next one. We'd love to see some of you there also. October 7th is our pier jump. We've got 15 jumpers. One of your very own jumped last year, Jennifer Elliott. I can't wait to see which one of you is going to jump this year. We hope somebody will choose to. So that's a challenge. I hope Jennifer will challenge one of you to do it. I think Terry's up. Oh, okay, you just got volunteered, Terry.
Well, it's old.
And then on October 19th is Light the Future of the Pier. It's our annual celebration. This year, we hope we will be lighting the holiday lights on the pier. It will be a very exciting time. We're opening it up to the public. This will be the first time that we're selling tickets and fundraising there also. Next slide. Like I said, thank you so much for having us. I hope you'll invite me back in June. We'd like to show you the specific designs for that entranceway and Pier Plaza. Any questions?
I have a quick comment. Can you send your schedule to Samantha to distribute to us?
Of course.
Also, when are you having your meetings?
Thank you.
We have our meetings, our board meetings are the second Monday of the month, generally. And I can send you that schedule as well as you'd like. Sure, we'd love to see you there.
I just have a quick question. Thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful and it was good to meet you. So obviously one of the things that's happening at the pier soon, coming November, is this big sand project that's coming in. Lots of new sand for the pier, which would be great and bring more people in hopefully. Do you foresee Pier Pride having any sort of role in like either communications about this or wanting to have a role in like reaching out to the community about what this project is and what it's bringing?
So that's a really good question, thank you. We've been asked that before. That is such an important part of our community, what is going to happen in November. Unfortunately, that's not part of our charter. We are specific to the pier and the visitor experience on the pier. We'd be more than happy to help in any way that we can and get the word out for you. So if we can use our communication channels for that, we would be more than happy to. But as far as it taking an active role, that isn't planned at this time.
Thank you.
Eileen, I wanted to thank you for your work in Pier Pride and thank your board. You do a terrific job for keeping the pier looking beautiful.
Thank you, that means a lot to us. Very much, thank you.
I second that comment.
Thank you so much. I hope to see you in June.
Thank you. Did we want to have any discussions about, did everybody get a chance to think about some of the things that she just presented and talk about some ideas, maybe to even, consider?
I think we should invite them back in June and put it as an agenda item.
I had one comment, Eileen.
I'm sorry.
So in regards to the, kind of trying to get people down underneath, I know you guys are working on, kind of restoring the paint and getting some better lighting down there. Have you guys considered anything else, like maybe pictures, like a walk through history, of the pier area?
So that's a great
to
idea.
draw them down in there.
Oh, no, that's a great idea. Part of the project is some kind of public art, and I think Samantha might have something up her sleeve along those lines, but we will certainly consider that as part of the installation.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to make you walk all the way back.
No, that's okay. Anything else while I'm here?
I had another question. There was some discussion about bike racks with the increase of e-bikes. Will bike racks be part of the new?
And I'm
pier
sorry,
plaza?
yes, thanks for asking me about that, Jennifer. That was, if we go back several slides, that was our last project. There it is, our 2023-24 project. And I heard last night from Samantha that hopefully it will be in by the fall, so there will be expanded bicycle parking down at the base of the pier.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll see you in June.
And thank you, Peer Pride.
Thank you.
All right, so we can move into new business, section B. Unsolicited proposal installation of raw elements sunscreen stations on city beaches.
So, good evening, Commission. Again, Samantha Wiley, which is Parks and Recreation Director. I do have a representative from Raw Elements. Some background on this process. Occasionally, staff in the city receives unsolicited proposals for programs or projects that don't necessarily fit in a specific area, and therefore the staff choose to bring it to the Commission for consideration. This group did make a presentation to the City Council a couple of years back, and the City Council was very much interested in that, but then we went through the pandemic and we've just gone through a lot of changes. So I thought it would be great to have Chris here in person to kind of give the overall view of the program and what the want is, what the ask is. And it's really an opportunity for the Commission to take in the information. You could choose to take action tonight. You could choose to table it for another time or continue the item. So it's really just to hear the presentation and digest it, and then have some open discussion after that. Okay?
Thank you, Sam, and thank you all for the time here. My name is Chris Wagaman. I am one of the owners of Raw Elements Sunscreen. Lived in San Clemente since 2006. I've been a soccer coach here for over 10 years at San Clemente High School, at the local club. Played against Mr. Bird plenty of times. Actively involved in the community. One of my partners is Aaron Hennings, co-founder of Stan Socks. Born and raised in San Clemente with his awesome wife and 4 kids. Actively involved in the surfing community. Raw Elements started in 2012 by my partner Brian Guadagno, who was an ocean lifeguard, still is today, out of Narragansett, Rhode Island. He started Raw Elements in the spirit of finding out all the harmful chemicals in sunscreen affecting our oceans and human health. He was quite embarrassed, went on a search for a natural sunscreen in 2011, came up short, took his business plan from college, turned his kitchen into a lab, and came Raw Elements. I was grateful and honored to invest in the brand in 2015. Obviously on a path to make change in sustainability and human health. Next slide, Monty. Our mission is always to deliver the safest, most effective sun care on the planet. We originated in sunscreen. We've now branched out into some personal care items, head to toe, morning, noon, and night, based on our customers wanting more from us, but sunscreen was the focal point of the brand and still is the ethos. Our brand pillars, anytime we develop product, outside of performance, which is most important, is sustainability, corporate responsibility, and education. And that's what we've done since 2012. Next slide. Our products check all the boxes. You may see across your feed or on the news about mineral versus chemical, all the harmful effects to ocean life. Coral reef damage is most visible, but it's all ocean life. FDA has now come out and presented a monogram that has now stated that non-nano zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, 2 natural minerals, are the 2 GRAS ingredients, safe ingredients in sun care, and the other 12 chemicals are deemed as harmful, even though we've been using them for the last 40 years. We check all the boxes. We're non-GMO verified, project approved, Leaping Bunny cruelty free. We use sustainable packaging. We have absolutely no chemicals, no fragrance, and no synthetic preservative in our formulas. We're always #1 on EWG, Environmental Working Group's website, which is a really good validated website to get rid of all the greenwashing and to really understand what sustainability is all about, and are you safe if you purchase. Next slide. the biggest white space our brand has is we developed a dispenser program in hospitality back in 2016, and from there, some of the data on the deck, it's changed over the last couple of weeks. We have over 1,000 dispensers out there in the marketplace, whether it's in hospitality, retail is where it originated, and then it went into public municipalities. In 2017, we launched 6 dispensers in Rhode Island, in Narragansett, and now we have about 92 dispensers. In Maui County, they banned all non-mineral sunscreen, and Maui Visitor Bureau and the mayor's office came to me and wanted to develop a public program in Maui County. So we just launched 30 public dispensers in Maui County, including Molokai and Lanai, in the month of November, and the Big Island is next. So, the objective is to create, an environment of people feeling safe, education, allowing tourists or locals to access free sunscreen and understand about the issue, which is a major issue. Obviously, we've had some commentary about the way our coasts are and some of the degradation, and some of it has to do with plastic pollution and personal care products dumping into our sands and oceans. So, next slide. The dispenser itself, we went through major evolutions of it since 2016. It is an aluminum die-bind board, which is fully recyclable and sustainable, and the unit itself is stainless steel as well. Our new units only have, the only plastic that's involved is the little push button that you're actually pushing to pull the sunscreen out. As far as maintenance, very low maintenance, easy to install, and can sustain the most extreme conditions, whether it's trade winds in Hawaii, high rains, dry weather, things like that. Next slide. A lot of marketing comes out of it. We want to put a feather in San Clemente's cap. Typically, the press want to understand what's going on. They want to find out. They want to write about it. We've been on several news stations in Hawaii and Florida and Rhode Island based on the fact that we've created this white space and bringing education to the public. So it creates positive change. The community typically wants to get involved. The project we have in Maui County, we have 10 non-governmental organizations managing the program because they said they wanted to be involved, not because we went out and saw them. So at the end of the day, the community takes ownership of change and builds a lot of camaraderie and ends up being a really positive force for a community. Next slide. Partnerships, again, I spoke to Maui County, Rhode Island, they're all different cases. In the state of Rhode Island, the Department of Health comes in, funds a lot of it, and we go out and get some private money as well. In Hawaii, the Kahala Center, which is a park on the Big Island, Target came in, underwrote it for the first couple years, and then other local businesses got involved and said, we want this to stay. This has been amazing. That moved into the Maui Visitor Bureau project in Maui County. So it starts to be a trickle down, or news travels and other people want to get involved. So again, it's just a great community project. Next slide. The opportunity. I went ahead and just kind of made a prototype fitting the aesthetic of San Clemente, whether that is going to continue in the way that looks and feels. We haven't, we can do it every which way. The idea is to make sure that we build the program specific for that community, San Clemente. I live here, I want it as bad as anybody just because I want change. So it's all about making it easy. There is no cost to the city. We'll fund it. We have public entities, private entities in San Clemente, such as Gary Ward Properties that wants to be involved to help fund it. Raw Elements will be participating as well. Gary Ward has been very active in sustainability when he owned his sandal brand in the surf industry all the way to real estate now. Some of you all might know who he is, but he's just one. It's really not about showcasing these big logos everywhere. It's really about honoring who's involved whether it is the city of San Clemente, Parks and Rec, or it's Gary Ward, or it's Raw Elements, honoring that part, showing the community it is a joint effort, but really it's about offering something safe and an alternative choice for the people that are here in San Clemente. Next slide. You know, I have a proposal here. It's nimble, but was to install several locations at T Street, the Pier, Linda Lane, North Beach, and the 2 pools that we have for the community, Ollie Hansen's and Hermosa. We provide all the hardware. We would provide the posts. Obviously, we would love labor to install them to make sure that we're abiding by San Clemente requirements. But we have those capabilities of installing as well. We will manage, handle all the maintenance, handle any vandalism. It is of no cost or any, call it labor or participation to the city. Next slide. Program details, again, I pretty much covered them, but it's to provide San Clemente and the community all natural, environmentally safe public sunscreen, provide the community with a health initiative presented to San Clemente Parks and Rec. It would be a pilot program from basically May to Labor Day. If the city feels, Parks and Rec feels it wants to continue, we would love for it to continue. But it's really a litmus test. It's a pilot program to say, hey, did we have success? And should this move forward? We will prove to you that it is very successful. Local business is giving back. Guaranteed the moment we put it up is how can I get involved? It's happened every single time we've done it. If they don't, it's okay, we'll handle it. It's a local PR opportunity. Again, there's television, there's digital, there's all the ways that we can work together to elevate and show change. And that's really what we're all about. We can, if it permits, to host a media day where we would invite certain media to come in and really just kind of show what San Clemente's doing with change. And then the customized dispenser board, again, we have the ability to design this out with anyone's logos specific or any education that we want to put on there. We obviously have certain things that have to be on there, drug fact, based on liability and FDA regulations and things like that, because we are liable to the sunscreen. Next slide. I just throw out a few businesses that have expressed interest or we have relationships with that we either do business with, where we've seen, where we have these dispensers, where we're doing retail. We do sell Raw Elements in retail operations in San Clemente, so I want everybody to know that it is a supported brand here in the community. Where these dispensers are, sales are up because of the awareness and the issue and the brand and the camaraderie. It typically will raise sales to those retail situations. We all need to be mindful about how hard it is to maintain a retail operation, and anytime we can give them a little bit of advice to increase sales, we're out to do it. Next slide. And that's just my contacts and my other business partners, and I appreciate your time. Any questions?
Chris, is that Chris?
Yes.
Thank you for your time. Thank you. I love the idea. I love that the pools are being included. I didn't notice anything further south than T Street. Are there any plans to include Clavia in the future?
We can. It was all about the separation from city to state. So it was presenting something to you. We're nimble. We can extend it down. It was really just trying to find a way to make it easy for the city and Parks and Rec to say, this is a viable program. Okay, now where do we go? So that's all open for discussion. That's just a proposal that shows that it's feasible.
Thank you.
I had 2 questions. So Chris, I daily wear SPF 30. Do you have an SPF rating on what this is?
Yeah, most of our products, which SPF really doesn't mean much in sun care anymore. SPF 30, SPF 50, there's really about less than a 1% difference. It really comes down to the percentage and the type of active ingredient that you're using. In the formula that's in the dispensers, it's 20% non-nano zinc oxide, which is a topical mineral sunscreen that sits on the top of your skin. and acts as a barrier to the sun. With that, you protect from UVA and UVB rays. A lot of chemical sunscreen will not protect you from UVB. That's why you see a lot of melanoma cases despite people use a lot of sunscreen.
Hence, I'm the SPF 30 every day.
Yeah.
And a Coppertone girl. Okay, the second
We'll
question
have
I
a
had.
discussion about your brand, but, you know.
Yeah, no, I don't use Coppertone.
If I could just educate you about what is safe.
Okay. As you said, a pilot program from Memorial Day roughly to Labor Day.
Yes.
If we approve it, are you still maintaining all the equipment and supplies if it goes on, or are you only maintaining during the pilot program?
100%. If the city and Parks and Rec decide that they want to get involved, they can get involved. But outside of that, no, I'm not asking that today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question or two.
Go ahead.
So how do you, Chris, get notified if you run out? Do you have people that go check the quantity in the little element there?
Yeah, we'll be maintaining it on a, well, depending on the season and the time of year, on a daily, weekly basis. I'm very active in the surf community. We sponsor a lot of the local up-and-coming surfers that are really good individuals in college or in high school that are all cannot wait to be involved to maintain these. I live right at Riviera. My eyeballs are on it as well. Aaron Hennings and his family's eyeballs. But at the end of the day, there will be hired employees from Raw Elements that will be maintaining the units. We'll be cleaning them. You know, they get smudged up, or they, you know, if the wind's blowing or it's raining and stuff, we'll keep them clean, keep them filled up. They're easy to fill. They take about less than a minute to fill.
Well, I asked you that question because I'm very familiar with Ribby, having lived there for about 30 years myself. But I know too that, I'm just gonna say Ribby, just for the example here, that on certain nights or even in the summertime, it's occupied by a lot of partiers.
Yep.
And in that, if they're trying to get some sunscreen or doing a night surf or whatever they're gonna do, if there's nothing that's coming out of there, I would be concerned that somebody would try to demolish that and wreck it.
Yeah, we're aware of the possibility of vandalism. There will be information on the dispenser board to call or email or contact. If there is a situation like that, we will cover that. I've got them in every public beach in Maui County right now. I haven't had one vandalism issue. There was one that happened in Whalers Village, which is the shopping mall, where we had a problem, but on the beaches there has not been one vandalism issue. There has not been one vandalism issue in the whole state of Rhode Island since 2017. Now, is it gonna happen in San Clemente? It very well may do that, especially with some of the young population. If it is, that's part of business. We'll handle it tastefully. We'll get it replaced. It takes about 4 days to create a headboard, which I would produce extra ones anyhow and have that ready to go. The install is about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So we've got all of our ducks in line when things happen like that, if they do, and we're on it.
And one more question, then how many doses would that give? How many people would be served in one day?
So
Or how much
unit,
volume how many people would use the volume that's in there?
yeah, that unit holds about 3 32-ounce bags, and every 32-ounce bag gets about 650 dispenses. So you're getting almost 2,000 dispenses out of that. One dispense will cover your complete face, neck, and ears.
Okay.
So the usage, and that's what we do, we pay attention to the usage. We have analytics from a lot of different programs. We know about what you're gonna use in the first couple months of a new program. We know what you're gonna use in 2 years. So it really comes down to all the analytics we have, and then also paying attention to what's happening in this program.
Okay, my last question, when you were asked about the protection level of 50 or 30 or whatever, I wasn't clear what your answer really was, or were you just making fun of the numbers?
I was kind of making fun of it because we come from this space of that's how we know it, and it's not the appropriate way, and I apologize for making a joke about it. All of our products are SPF 30 and up. We don't do
Okay.
anything below SPF 30, and that's what she was asking, are they SPF 30?
Well, and you can see why I would ask that question, because we have beaches full of families.
Yeah,
So you've got them from easy to old.
100%.
So if you, they want to know.
Yeah,
Because
and
parents have to protect their children, et cetera, it goes down the whole scheme of ages.
yeah, and on the headboard, it says SPF 30 broad spectrum right here.
Okay. I have another question, may I ask that directors to our director? Director Wiley, does the city have any concern about branding on these items?
A great question. So, on the staff side and the department, historically, branding and commercialization of our beaches has been, a really challenging topic. It's not been highly, looked upon. And, some folks might know that, years ago, we used to have this trash can program that they sold advertising on trash cans, and it created a lot of blight. And so our city council over the last several years has really done a really great effort of reducing commercialization through logos and extra signage. Even collaborating between Public Works and BPR, we're working to condense signage where there might have been, 4 or 5 different signs in one spot. We've condensed those onto one sign to clean it up. Signage goes to the atmosphere that you're creating when somebody arrives in a place. So something like this certainly matches our wayfinding, which is helpful. I think anything that the commission gives direction on, whether it's to engage in a pilot program, those are all on staff side would be things that would be worked out with the applicant here, which is Chris and Raw Elements. We'd work out, what is the exact size that we're gonna allow of a logo. And that kind of goes to the sign package in general. And all of that would then be forwarded to the city council for their consideration and final stamp of approval. Because certainly at the staff level, we don't want to be the ones making big decisions on what we're gonna allow. The only similar program we've had in place is the Friends Foundation did the dog bag stations. Yeah, we did allow them to sell spaces, and that was part of the program. In order to have the free bags, they needed sponsors of those stations. So it's not unheard of, and I think that program was done very tastefully as well. So I think Chris could accomplish that also.
One more question for you, please, Director Wiley. So with that, I noticed in your press release information, sir, talking about placement, and some of them were on lifeguard towers. Would that be something that the city lifeguards or Beaches Parks and Recreation would approve of?
they weren't on lifeguard towers.
No, I know that was an original conversation Chris and I had several years ago, and we've moved away from that. That would not be encouraged, and I certainly, and he's expressed it. Our city lifeguards don't have the bandwidth to put the bags in. They don't have the bandwidth to maintain it, and neither do our maintenance services staff at this time.
So my follow-up, who would be doing that then?
Yeah, Sam and myself have done a bit of due diligence between, and hence the smaller logos on the on the dispenser headboards. I understand there are places that lifeguards do play that role. It's not gonna happen here, so we actually put them on a post away from the lifeguard tower, but in a place that could be accessible to anyone that's around the lifeguard tower.
Or even walking on the trail?
Of course, yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
So am I correct that you have locations in Rhode Island and Maui right now where you have dispensers like these in a public environment?
That's correct.
Those two locations. And about how many dispensers would you say you have, like, off the top of your head?
We have over 1,000 across the country, whether it's in private, hospitality, retail, or public. In public, in Maui County, we just installed our first 30. We have a program that's gonna take us up to about 150. In the state of Rhode Island, and I'll take that back. In the state of Rhode Island, because of weather right now, they're not up, but they get installed just before Memorial Day. Last year there were 75, this year there's 92. We're actually honing in on a few parks that are that are not as well-to-do or in the nicer areas of Rhode Island that those people still deserve sunscreen. We're in correctional facilities in Rhode Island as well. So there'll be 92 in Rhode Island, there's 30 in Maui County, and we're moving to install more in Maui. And then there's some legislation in place on the Big Island to actually pass a bill that will allow dispensers to go on the Big Island of Hawaii as well. But now Florida's starting to kind of take its course. Antigua, Key West, U.S. Virgin Islands, Bonaire, Curacao, even the Netherlands. So it's not something that I even thought was going to happen when I installed it into the very first hotel, which was the Surf Shack Hotel on Oahu in 2016. But it has become basically our whole marketing tool of making change. Yeah. This would give California, would give San Clemente the first public program in the state of California.
I just have a comment. Thank you for your presentation. So my personal view on this is that I really am a big fan of this. I think especially in the pool areas, I think that really makes a lot of sense. I'm a little bit more hesitant about this on our beach areas, and only just because I feel like I'd have to know the exact location and where it would be and sort of see the signage and whether it contributes to sort of, clutter on our beach, like, signage clutter, if there's already a lot of signs there or whatnot, and if this would be adding to that. And then, I'm also, so the sponsors, I have a question about that. So is that sponsors, so the name on there, because you have like Net Hero and all kinds of companies that would sponsor these, is that to pay for the sunscreen in there, or is the city actually getting like a sponsorship?
No, that would help fund the project. We're not making money on the project. So basically, a Gary Ward Properties, Miley, if you could scroll back to a couple of the locations, like that was an example in North Beach, actually, that was like right at the tip of North Beach, right at the beginning of the trail. The locations are not designated as to those exact locations. We obviously would want approval from the city as to where you want those. If you choose that, those locations I called out are what you accept.
Yeah, would planning commission look at locations or anything like that, or no?
No, planning doesn't have to review that. If this commission has preferred locations or suggestions, and there's going to be a motion on some type of pilot program, certainly those recommendations could be included this evening. But ultimately it would be something that staff would iron out with Chris. We'd have to go look at the sites to make sure that it's not gonna unduly impede the right of way and kind of those aspects. So, but if there's preferences tonight, please voice those, and staff will work to finalize that before it heads to council.
And to add to the sponsorship, it's really to bring funding in from the community to show the change within the community. Raw Elements could go in and fund all the projects and be okay because it's a marketing tool. But the fact is, the community wants to be involved. Someone like Gary Ward Properties, Gary, I know Gary, he wants to be involved in sustainability, he wants change. Greg Marino at Med Hero, same thing. These are all conversations that we've had about making change, not about money and monetizing or bringing in additional revenue. So just to be clear as to how the money, and we can be transparent as to how that happens.
I have a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I noticed on your PR packet here that you've brought this before the city council before another time.
That's correct.
And what happened there? I don't know, did you have a pilot project then with them, or did that fall through?
No, we presented almost the same thing, and everybody was for it, and we were gonna move forward, and then the pandemic came.
Okay.
So everything just kind of, Sam and I just kind of said, oh, looks like we gotta hang out for a while. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple.
Go ahead.
On the discussion about, looking at a pilot program to try to get started and then see if that works out. And if that did, your program would continue year-round, even in the off-season?
That's correct.
Here, different than Rhode Island.
Yes, yeah, we would continue year-round. If we find that we have some weird year where the weather gets really bad, we might remove the dispensers off the headboards for that period of time. But we want to give them access to the community, and if it's in a way where people are on the beach or on the trail or at the pool, especially the pool the pool is no issue because you've got all the kids there at all times. And it could even be indoors if it had to be. But the plan is to do it all the time. I really created this program to not put so much pressure to say, oh, well, we're gonna lock into this thing for 2 years. Not on me, but on the city or on Parks and Rec. If we do it for 3-4 months and it's successful and you're really happy, all you have to say is let's continue. If you don't like it, you can say remove your dispensers and get out.
And it'd just be that your servicing would change probably, and you'd see what the demand was, and then change your frequency of your servicing, in the off-season.
100%.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, every case is different, in Hawaii, in Maui, we have the NGOs that roll around, they've got their little keys, they've got their cleaning products, they've got their bags, the whole thing. One part of Hawaii, the DLNR handles it, but it's because they want to. We're just not gonna ask anything extra of the city unless the city wants to be involved, because we really just wanna get the program started. So, again, Rhode Island Department of Health plays a role in it financially. We go out and subsidize a little bit of that with some private money. Certain areas, the lifeguards do play a role. Sometimes it's NGOs that play a role, depending on the parks, correctional facilities, things like that. Keep you, limited to the types of people that have to service it. But the maintenance on these units are so low, it's crazy. I mean, it's literally a soap dispenser that needs no
Those types of dispensers
maintenance.
are all over the place nowadays, ever
Yeah.
since the pandemic. And all the types of, well, I mean, I think it's a very good program. I like the idea. I kind of agree with the location of them would be of concern, and wanting to be sure that we all agree that it's, not degrading the look of our beaches, and we've got enough stuff down there now, finding the right spots for them. That would be a concern. My other one would be kind of, Samantha, you touched upon it, is also, I think, the whole legal situation, in that if you go through this process, I guess you would check with city legal. I think having the city logo or anything on these, I think then means that it's a real partnership, and that we support this product. And I think that we probably should be staying away from saying we are supporting certain products over other products. And that it should be more, this is what they're doing, and with our permission, but not really that we're supporting it, or.
Yeah, hence, we didn't put the logo on here. If you want it, Maui County did.
Yeah, I would think
We did
different
it.
places would do it differently, but I would think our legal would need to look at that and make the decision on what would be the appropriate thing there, just
Yeah.
for potential of liability things down the road.
And to be clear, we are liable, we have a drug fact, we carry a COI, we have all the insurance that we can prepare all documentation to the city, that we're buttoned up. We'll be activating at the Tortuga Festival, Rock the Ocean, big conservation venue in Fort Lauderdale next week, 35,000 people a day, owned by Live Nation. We do those types of events, it's the same thing. You've got to show all your paperwork, all your documentation to show that the city or the organization or the entity is not liable for the situation, so,
Yeah, okay, so those are my points.
yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I have a last question for Sam. If we want to take action tonight, does that action take form of making a recommendation to city council, or are we able to make a recommendation for action at our level?
It could be either. you know, ultimately, staff will take this proposal to council. So, because this is right around the corner, May is coming really quickly, you could recommend or, you know, make a motion to direct staff to draft an agreement with Raw Elements that then gets forwarded to the council for approval. I think that, or you could have us come back in June, that's the other option, if you wanna see that proposal and what that looks like. There's two different ways you could go. Does that make sense?
This is coming up in May.
My idea is that maybe, I mean, the Memorial Day just seems very aggressive, that maybe we just have to delay it a little bit, and if we came back to the June meeting with a real definitive plan and locations that we could review and agree upon the locations and everything, and if you've done all your due diligence and so forth, then could it happen very soon after that? I mean, maybe it might be a more of a 4th of July implementation if we had to wait for our June meeting.
I'm happy to do whatever the commission wants. I do want to say that these meetings fall on the second Tuesday, council meets on the 1st and 3rd, so it would likely not get to council until July, and then they have some different meeting schedules because of the holiday, and they take some breaks, so.
Yeah, the summer would be over then. Maybe that's not the best idea.
Or could we parse it out, or approve the pools first, and then have that be the pilot for this year, and then maybe work on the beaches, and then have that?
Well, it sounds like we like the idea, however, there's many concepts that are not developed to our liking, whether it be signage, whether it be supporting a company, and timing. So I think we either make a motion or we delay it.
Yeah, before we invite any motions, we do have some public input. So we do
Well,
guys,
then you have to just, oh, I'm sorry,
do you guys have any more questions? Any questions over here? Okay, well, with that, I'm going to ask Amanda Q to come on up to speak on agenda item 6B, which is what we're talking about right now.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Glad I came back. I'm glad I wore this t-shirt because this is a reminder of a controversy regarding this t-shirt and the use of a trident by a local artist and a fellow friend of mine, Roy Gonzalez. Last year, this became a very big controversy because of a trident that is used on a logo for San Clemente High School. And people were saying that it was satanic. And every council member basically took a religious stance saying, well, no, we don't want to do that. But if you go to any parts of Europe, there's all tridents and fountains of Trevi and any other places as well. So that was a big, huge concern regarding logos, and a lot of people came out and spoke in behalf of Roy Gonzalez for his artwork. And the reason why I say that is because there was a controversy there. Also in 2017, there was a concern regarding a big, huge public outcry because of the logos from the Transportation Corridor Agency, the TCA, which the city of San Clemente was in lawsuit against. And the TCA wanted to build 12 roads through established communities, parks and recreation centers, through businesses, through through churches, through schools, or nearby schools, and that was a big, huge concern. And the public outcry won because the people didn't want the TCA to be affiliated with sponsoring the Ocean Festival. Unfortunately, it did hurt the Ocean Festival, but I think the city of San Clemente matched those funds eventually. But one of the concerns about that is that having sponsorships. When I drive on Pico, I look at it's the school I graduated from, and I see all these logos that are on that fence, and they're local vendors, some aren't, but it's distracting, and so I'm really concerned regarding that, and I'm concerned that any of the city council members didn't bring up these issues because this was a problem in last year, and it was a problem in 2017. So also, there was a concern regarding a supervisor that, because she was very pro-TCA, pro-toll road. So I hope that we keep that in mind regarding logos and associating one beach with one logo and thinking, oh, wait a minute, is that a pro-TCA or pro-whatever? So, so that, you know, there's a lot of public outcry during those times, and just a reminder of that. Thank you very much.
All right, so at this point, I'd like to invite a motion or action item.
Well, I'd like to bring up a potential motion, let's see if it can work. That we approve a pilot program, or we approve that this proposal be prepared to be taken to city council. And that we have the department work on the details of the proposal, involving legal as needed, to take to city council, but with a plan to deploy it and the locations of it to be decided by our next meeting. So it can move to city council for their approval, and they come up with a proposal of where they want to put them, and then that's the only thing that really comes back to us in our June meeting, and we look at those and give comments and make recommendations and changes, and then, but then they can be implemented, you know, there soon after, which would be, you know, just a few weeks after Memorial Day.
Yeah, we could, can I come back up real quick? Or
Is-
I'll second that.
Yeah, I think
Can you condense that?
I'll try.
so we're asking for clarification on the
Good
motion.
clarification on the motion.
we can prepare dispensers.
So sorry to interrupt you, we have a motion on the table, we need to let the commission.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
That we support this idea, that we would like a proposal, a final proposal actually prepared and taken to city council for their approval at the next available meeting. The department will work on preparing that, but the final determination of the location of the dispensers would be then decided at our next meeting in June, where they would come back with a proposal of the locations, and we could review those and decide where we would like to have them.
And do you accept a friendly amendment?
Sure.
Well, we want to include pilot project.
Yeah, it was a pilot project.
And also, my friendly amendment would be to appoint, or not appoint, maybe select, or get volunteers from our commission right now, perhaps 2 or 3 people who would go out now and choose the locations, perhaps under the guidance of our director, but choose the locations and have them ready for the city council report.
So we had a motion, we had a second, we had a clarification, and we had an amendment.
Do we have a second for the, so Susan has made a motion, an amendment motion. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second Susan's friendly amendment.
Okay. Any further?
I have a clarification or question. What about the signage itself and whether we're having other company?
Rob said
is
have
that
legal addressing.
right? But I don't know if is it a if because my problem with that is that, I mean, we're putting now like 2 companies' businesses on there, and then there's really no control over what business that is, and then that also gets us, I mean, it just seems like we're
And don't forget, we get to vote on the motion next.
a slippery road. So I'm wondering if that can be on the table for removal of the second, removal of the sponsor name. Like why?
Removal of,
So in other words, another amendment that the signage just has
Right.
showing the sponsorship of the company that's donating the product,
Right.
and not other
Not an investor.
other sponsors.
Not other sponsors
Could
that I
change.
feel like could change, I mean, there's just a huge list of
But
names.
Rob also brought up earlier in discussion
Errol.
that, has San Clemente, and it looks as if the city sponsors it versus,
Yeah, we don't want it to look like.
so there's a
city
signage
sponsored.
issue to start with.
But we're talking about now about the other sponsor types of companies that are maybe involved in sponsoring the program with them,
Yeah.
of having those logos on the sign or not.
Yeah. I mean, cause to me, it makes me more comfortable to have just one and having, you know, maybe a multitude of, you know, different companies on the bottom that, you know, this one it's a known entity, and then the others, I mean, it could change every year, and who knows what it would be, or if people are gonna agree, or if it's a company that, I don't know, it just makes me nervous with a lot of the commercialization of beaches, so. I don't know if there's a way we could.
So do you wanna go back to the vote, to the amendment?
Yeah, so we have a second for the friendly amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Would we like to take a vote on that at this point as is?
Well, let's see if we can come up with another amendment to add to that satisfies everyone.
So if I
but-
can, just to clarify,
Yeah.
is the motion to take a pilot program to the council ahead of coming back to the commission?
Yes, that's what
Well,
we said.
that was what the initial was, but then there was an add-on to that about that if we took and had a subcommittee that helped the department in coming up with the approved locations for the signs, then we wouldn't have to bring it back to the commission. It could just go to city council and be approved.
Yeah, and that got
Isn't that
seconded.
the way I understand it too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the third issue is signage itself, and that's where Doreen and I are having issues with signage.
You wanna?
Do you wanna start with that motion?
Well, no, I don't.
So you,
Well, we've got this third thing on the table, we need to address that, and then go back, if that one fails.
you only have one motion on the table, and there's been a friendly amendment to it, you have a second on that whole motion. So unless there's a substitute motion, then we need to vote on the first motion.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question to the business person out here?
Yes.
Just ask
Is
for a
that
point of
allowed?
information.
Yes.
Right.
Would that be approved by your company if there was not a printed sponsor that was getting recognized?
I,
Because it sounds like with our commission,
yeah,
it's not being, we're not liking that idea.
yeah, well, based on the information that I gathered in the past, there have been success stories with San Clemente where there have been sponsors, and the idea is to help out with the funding so that we can make change in San Clemente. And through that, we pick tasteful entities and businesses to be a part of that. So I can't answer that today.
Okay.
I'd have to go back to my team and find out if we're willing to fund the program, because no one's gonna help fund it without not having them to be able to be a part of it.
What about their great community spirit that you talked about?
I'm sure they have great community spirit, but everybody likes to make sure that they drive what they need to, so,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
Okay, let me do a quick, clarify your friendly amendment one final time.
Well,
So
actually-
to include what his,
Actually, I think he repeated it exactly perfectly. Errol?
Was that friendly amendment was that instead of it having to come back to us in our June meeting, that we would create a subcommittee off the commission to assist department and the company in coming up with approved locations from the commission. And then it could continue on to city council. It wouldn't have to come back for approval here in June,
okay,
other locations.
let's go ahead and take a vote.
What are you asking? All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Say aye.
Right.
Nay.
Okay, and all opposed? Okay, so this amendment passes with,
52.
oh gosh, 5-2, with Campo Piano and Weinstein
Nay.
as name, as your. All right. Do we want to talk about a subcommittee real quick, since that's kind of part B of it? Anybody want to volunteer right now?
Why don't we,
to-
so we can keep moving through the agenda, why don't we continue forward, and then there's we can maybe address that under, well, I guess just do it now.
Yeah, we're not having another meeting for it.
I'm sorry, was that accepting the amendment, or was that voting on the whole?
That was accepting the motion with an amendment.
It more or less accepts the whole thing though.
Is that what we're doing? We don't need to take another vote to accept the whole initial motion?
No.
Okay.
If it had failed, then we would have gone back.
Well, I'd like to nominate, since they already volunteered for the subcommittee, Errol and Jareen. Would two be enough, or do you need a third? I think two is probably enough.
Why don't we do something real quick? If you wish to be nominated, just raise your hand so we all know who's willing to do it.
I mean, I voted no.
But at least you get to, you
Yeah,
get to have
the
some input
location.
into,
I'm not, yeah, I could,
because I think also it's gotta go before city council, and at
Okay,
that
so
point
you-
also they need to discuss about
Yeah.
rules and so forth.
yeah.
You're nominating Jareen and, I'm sorry, who else?
Okay, I'll,
Errol and Jareen.
Okay, so, do you want to make a motion?
Oh, well, they agreed then, okay, I move that the subcommittee, will be Errol and Jareen, are two of our commissioners, who will work together with our director, Samantha Wiley. All in favor?
We need a second.
We need
I'll
a second.
second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, this subcommittee passes unanimously. And I think we can finally move on to 6C. And that's Youth Sports Recreation Partnership Policy Review.
Okay, so, this is a policy review of the existing youth sports partnership policy for field sports specifically. The commission might recall that we did establish a subcommittee that included Commissioner Ambrose, Commissioner Formaster, and Commissioner Weinstein. And myself, along with a couple of my team members, met with the subcommittee on a couple of occasions, and we reviewed a number of different policies from other agencies that were similar to our format in terms of facilities, uses of those spaces, and then also looked at what our actual needs are within San Clemente. So the proposal this evening, in attachment 1 is the existing youth sports partnership policy that was approved back in 2012, and then again, there's some amendments in 2015. So that's attachment 1. Attachment 2 is the draft policy that the subcommittee and staff have prepared for the entire commission review. Some of the highlights of the proposed policy are included in your staff report. It's kind of high level. You'll notice that the proposed policy is significantly longer. It does really take some of the gray out of what our old policy had in it. That was a strong want and desire of the subcommittee to make it a much smoother process, so there were not discrepancies in residency and how rosters were collected, when things were submitted. Part of that includes an additional tier that's been added. So currently, we have platinum, gold, and silver partners. The recommendation moving forward is to go to a tier 1, 2, 3, and 4 system. Tier 1 being the highest level of partnership, 90% residency, 90% discount on field rentals. Tier 2 being 85% residency, 85% discount. Tier 3 is 80% residency, 80% discount. And then tier 4 is 70 on both sides, a discount and residency as well. That's one of the bigger changes. The other change to this is the establishment of a player fee at $5 per season. This is relatively standard within other agencies. It's actually something that the city of San Clemente did a number of years ago as well. And it was much higher at the time. These player fees range from anywhere as low as $10 to up to $25 per season. And they are intended to support the ongoing field maintenance costs that occur with the high volume of usage that the partner groups do on all of the fields. The partnership policy also looks at timelines for applications, it looks at seasons, it defines what is a volunteer organization, what is a volunteer versus a paid coach or trainer. And this policy then really dictates that partnership status is intended for volunteer-based organizations. And if the group is not volunteer-based, then they are then eligible for another discount if they qualify, whether that's a nonprofit discount, most likely if they don't qualify because they are not volunteer-based, they're probably a nonprofit, most youth sports groups are. So that it does separate that, and that was part of the ambiguity in our current policy. And then we also have written in a requirement for a scholarship program. This came up a couple times in our review of previous partnerships, that scholarships are important. We want to ensure that all areas of our community are being served, including those at risk and at need. And it establishes kind of a minimum requirement for a scholarship policy, but really does put the onus on the actual organization to structure its own scholarship, how it's distributed and how it's managed. With that, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any, and I'm sure the subcommittee probably has additional insight that they might be able to provide for the decision making. Thank you.
Any questions for Samantha on item 6C?
Just my comment, it was a great collaboration with staff and Samantha and her staff as well. I mean, we went through 7 cities or 9 cities, so it was quite good.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Well, first of all, this seemed to have come back to us really quickly, so congratulations to the subcommittee and staff that turned this around really quickly. But I do have some comments on some of the wording, and if we could look at 5.1.2. Each one of the tiers starts out, the applicant must have provided the sports program within the city of San Clemente for at least 3 years. The wording just doesn't seem to make sense there. You have provided for at least 3 years. I think you probably mean has needed to have participated in the sports program within for 3 years. Or is there something you want them to provide?
Yeah, it's meant to say that the organization has to have provided the sport for 3 years in San Clemente.
Provided this, oh, I see.
Their
Okay,
activity.
Okay. So, let's see, when we get through from tier 3 to tier 4, each one of the top 3 tiers has games, tournaments, and practices must be conducted within San Clemente boundaries. And then that's not in tier 4. Is that just something that was missed there, or do you actually mean that?
No, that's intentional, good question. That's actually what currently exists in our current policy as it is. So that lowest tier, that's not a requirement in the lowest tier.
Okay, one more.
It's more like a new organization, so they probably,
Okay,
so you're trying to be flexible to letting newbies in?
yeah, that makes sense, let's see, 5.1.4B, just the wording there says, shall provide financial relief towards the league registration fees at a minimum or a minimum of 2%. So one of those minimums.
Yeah, it needs to be, thank you, we'll remove that.
Stop. All right, I think, Susan, you had some questions? Comments?
My question goes back to what Samantha sent a note back to me, but I thought I'd bring it up to the public here. All of the other cities that we looked at had a minimum liability insurance of $1 million in their information that they provide to applicants, and we do not. And I think that we should include that. And your response to me, Samantha, do you want to explain your response to me?
Yeah, I can include the insurance requirements, I thought it was in here. We do require insurance, and it is a minimum of $1 million.
Yes.
I do want to tell you that all of that insurance is reviewed by our risk management, and the specific language is set by our risk management team and our insurance authority.
But if the minimum is 1 million.
It should be in here though. So it's 5.1C, it says carry appropriate commercial liability insurance, no less than the amount determined by the city.
I'm sorry, what page is that?
It is on 5.1C, it's page 2.
Oh, I must have, I don't know. I don't have.
Look at 50 on the far left.
Yeah, and then go down to C.
I don't have a million either.
It doesn't provide a specific amount, it says as determined by the city
Oh,
per
I know,
incident.
that's why I'm asking you. I'm asking why aren't we inserting that? I understand your answer is because it happens in-house at some future time.
Yes.
There's an actual number that's set, but we do know it's a minimum of $1 million, is that correct?
It can fluctuate, it depends, so staff's recommendation would be to not tie ourselves to a specific minimum. That's something that's gonna be reviewed potentially on a case-by-case basis with every organization. For this purpose of the policy, we need to make sure that they have commercial liability insurance, that's a requirement, and then we can go from there. This is what's currently in our policy. If the commission wants, I'm happy to bring this back to our risk management team for review. If they want to insert requirements, we can consider that if that's the commission's desire.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the 5 entities all belong to mother organizations, I don't know what way to phrase it. And those
Most
mother
of our current
organizations
partners, yes, currently
have
they
that.
have a parent organization.
Yeah.
Or a national organization, so the insurance is not something that they're unfamiliar with. I think Commissioner's Ambrose wants is to specify that in the policy, what the
At least the
requirement is.
I mean, I would think that the legal department of the city, that amount might change over, the next couple of years or whatever. If we put this in the policy, is the
Correct.
policy that's gonna stay on for years.
Correct.
And if we say there, based upon what the city dictates, then that way, if the city ends up changing and raising it to 1.1, the policy doesn't have to be rewritten,
Correct.
No, I understand that. I just think that since so many other cities have a minimum declared, that it would be easier, would remove a lot of phone calls into staff members who would be wasting time reiterating that information. But I don't have a contest here. I just wanted to clarify all of that. So I understand your reasoning. But I think I'd like approval on this, but I'd like you to come back and find out what, and at least let us know what that minimum would be.
So right now it's $1 million, I can tell you that. I also want to say that this policy is just a policy, so any organization that applies to be a partner, they actually have to sign an agreement. And within that agreement, there are specific terms and requirements listed. That is reviewed by both our risk management and our city attorney's office. So that gets into more of the finite detail of what you're looking for. Some of them have commercial liability auto insurance, some of them don't have auto insurance. It is case by case. That's why the policy is a little bit more broad to allow for flexibility by organization.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's, actually, we do have one request to publicly speak from concerned resident regarding 6C.
6C?
Just going to fly.
Yes, 6C.
Can you, yeah, I don't think they can you make it bigger? Well, actually, you've seen this slide before, and your director assured me that she did give it to you in writing as well. So, good evening. Thank you for your commitment to San Clemente beaches and parks, and I want to especially thank the Commissioners Ambrose, Formaster, and Weinstein for all the work that you have done on the Youth Sport Partnership Subcommittee. I'm drawing your attention to the, Ms. Samantha, what did you call it? The agreement. And by the way, I think the $1 million is listed in your agreement. But I would like to draw your attention to 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5. Been here, done this with you,
but I just want to make sure that you are aware that sports organizations must coordinate games to reduce overlap of game times and allow for adequate time between games for players leaving the park to vacate parking spaces for those coming in. And 18.2 provides unambiguous procedures the city is to take when violations occur so that families are not subjected to extreme unsafe conditions and residents' quality of life is not negatively impacted. Video, please, Miley. The city's disciplinary practice policy has not been enforced at San Gregorio Park in the 26 years I've lived there. You may be wondering why I'm making issue of it now. Well, what has changed is that the city has installed a new activity in San Gregorio, which easily takes up to 50 parking spaces. The staff did not account for this, and now the park is consistently overflowing its parking lots, causing unsafe conditions on the adjacent residential streets and negatively impacting the quality of life for the neighborhood. The only entrance is located off of a 40-foot wide residential street that has no through sidewalk for families to access the park. The street was designed and engineered to accommodate a short-lived neighborhood, not a city park. When you decide to approve staff recommendations for a youth sports partnership that involves usage of San Gregorio Park, these restrictions need enforcing for everyone's safety and for the quality of life for the residents adjacent to the park. Are you aware that the neighborhood surrounding San Gregorio was assured that this park might create an overflow onto San Gregorio at most 2 to 3 times a year, and that would only be from special event permits, not from continuous usage of the sports fields. It's information like this that the BPNR Commission needs to know before making decisions for San Gregorio Park and the usage of its sports fields, and for staff to comply when scheduling field usage. For the record, no one is asking that Sanji Sports Parks not be utilized, just asking that their usage is in accordance with the conditions set by the city when the park was built. Speaking of conditions set by the city, I look forward to Ms. Wiley's report tonight, since this is just one of many extremely important conditions the city has for usage of Sanji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so at this time, I'd like to invite a motion.
I'd like a motion to approve.
Any amendments or,
I think I don't have to say with modifications, because you made a couple.
well, she can make a friendly amendment to say that. So you want to
I would
approve
like
this
to-
as
As presented.
There were a couple language problems, I think, that probably need to be addressed.
Which Samantha corrected.
I've got it, the one about the
So
minimum.
it's the policy as
As
amended
corrected.
tonight?
Yes.
Okay,
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 as
okay,
amended.
okay. Well,
I'll second the motion.
I have a question. Again, it's a process question. And it might be a friendly amendment, because I'm not sure. I think the items that were just brought to our attention as a reminder, should be included while we, or it should be included somewhere in our discussion tonight about San Gregorio, to be aware and alert of the safety issues that still remain there. And I know this probably isn't, maybe it's not relevant particularly to this item with our teams, so I will take that away, but I think I talked myself out of the question.
I get your question. I think what we were doing as a subcommittee was just streamlining the application process to get approved. I agree with you, parking is a consideration, and not just at San Gregorio, Foster's Ranch, many of the fields. This was just truly to streamline the application process, that's all.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion by Amelia and a second by Jen. Are we ready to go to vote?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
all right,
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Youth Sports Recreation Partnership Policy Review has passed unanimously with amended changes. All right. So now we can move into new business, section 6D, History of San Gregorio Park Decisions. Go ahead, Samantha.
Thank you, Commissioner. So this is a returning item based on the commission's request from its last meeting to look at a historical overview of the park decisions at San Gorgonio Park. This evening tonight, we're not looking to review the master plan, but to give overview of what's gone on at the site. The staff recommendation at the end is to receive and file the report. So that said, the staff report summarizes general actions over the past several years, dating back to the late 70s when the park was, the land was deeded to the city through the county. There have been a couple of major changes to the master plan throughout that time. It originally, as the staff report indicates, talked about a fire station. At one point, there was up to 9 tennis courts. It's gone through quite a few iterations. It's talked about lighted basketball courts, unlighted basketball courts. Today, we currently have lighted ball fields, which came into play in the early 2000s as part of a master plan update. I want to note that in the 1978 master plan originally proposed, there were handball courts, a football field, soccer field, kind of a multi-purpose field, if you will, 9 tennis courts, 2 baseball fields, a children's play area, and handball courts, as well as considerable amount of passive recreation and picnicking space. Part of that master plan that was proposed all of it went to the Parks and Recreation Commission at the time, as well as the Traffic and Parking Commission, which was another body in that time period in the late 70s. Out of that, while they approved the master plan, they did request additional parking be installed. And it was determined through that as well that Via San Gorgonio is the most logical ingress and egress given the elevations within that area. There was an environmental assessment that was done at that time through the CEQA requirements of the state of California. And the environmental effects indicated that there would be increased traffic and noise levels, and those could be considered potential environmental impacts.
Excuse me, were you gonna put the screens up, please?
Yes, if I can finish my report, I'm happy to bring those up when I'm ready. Give me 1 second. So the mitigation measures considered at that time or proposed were that activities with lighting should be located away from the residences to mitigate any off-spray of lighting. Any lighting that is installed should have directional shields on it, again, to shift it away from the residences and also locate those larger noise-making activities against the freeway when possible. So that was the late 1970s. We move into development, which happened in the 80s, and it was done in several phases. But in 1986, there was a master plan that the phased project consisted of 2 baseball fields, 2 tennis courts, a multi-purpose field, children's play area, and again, passive recreation space. That plan went through some iterations as well, where the tennis courts were actually proposed to be located where the existing play structure is, and the play structure was proposed to be where the tennis pickleball courts are now. Over, again, conversation through commission and council, they flipped that. So that's where you've landed with the existing layout that is in place today. Miley, if you can bring up the current layout, that would be great. While Miley's bringing that up, I want to hit on, as I mentioned, the lights were implemented and put into place in the early 2000s through a master plan update. There was quite a bit of feedback from the residents and neighborhood. They also considered adding an additional ball field. At the time, the ball field never was built, but the lights were installed, and San Gorgonio became known as really a community park with multiple activities occurring. In 2018, the city, as it says in the staff report, approved a master plan amendment to this site to include pickleball as a pilot program. That pilot program came back in 2019. At the time, and council approved shifting pickleball to San Gorgonio, where 4 dedicated courts were resurfaced, and there were 4 dual-lined courts added on top of a tennis court. In 2021, December of 2021, council modified the hours of the pickleball courts. All of our parks are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. They modified the courts to reduce the impact of noise early in the morning and late into the evening. And they also directed staff and authorized funding to install noise-reducing screens around the courts. I also want to point out that we've also looked at a playground replacement, as it notes in the staff report. That playground replacement that the commission reviewed and recommended approval of, it's been in manufacturing and production, and it is expected to start installation probably late June, early July. There's currently a sign that's been posted at the park site that gives note to the Prop 68 funds that were used to support the funding of that playground. And lastly, I want to note that in February of 2022, there was a traffic study that was done at the request of the council to look at Via San Gregorio. And at that time, the council approved the staff recommendation that was to prohibit parking on the south side of San Gregorio Park entrance, and on the north side from the curb. Parking was also to be prohibited on the east side of Via San Gregorio from the northeast curb return of the park, as well as from the southeast curb return of the park entrance. This traffic study included traffic counts, speed surveys. Our traffic engineers were out there looking at the area and monitoring the traffic in and out. And so also over time, I'm gonna fast forward now, we're gonna go to the second, Miley, you can go forward. In 2020, we kicked off a master plan update for the site-specific master plan of San Gregorio that included a couple of other park sites, and I'm not gonna go into those details, we're gonna focus on San Gregorio. Over the course of 2021, the commission and the public participated in a number of public meetings and got feedback. We worked with a consultant to come up with a design. The first design had a significantly large skate park feature. It expanded pickleball. It did much more based on community feedback. And based on the first draft feedback, the consultant, along with, again, taking into consideration commission comments, public comments, came up with a second draft concept design, which is what you're seeing here on the screen, excuse me. This plan does propose an additional, I think it's 41 or so parking spaces to be installed in the park. It takes away some of that existing picnic area, but it does increase parking. It also proposes to relocate 4 pickleball courts to the backside of the freeway, which is in conjunction with some of the original advisements of the environmental analysis in the 70s. And then it also proposes a much smaller, what is called a skate feature, essentially, adjacent to the, what would be now the tennis courts, because those would get converted back. Fields would stay the same, and it also adds a lookout point. It also adds an off-leash dog feature, again, against the freeway wall, based on some public feedback that we've heard from for a number of years. So with that, that's the general overview of where San Gregorio has been and where we're at currently. This master plan has not made its way to council because we are pending an environmental review. And in order to adopt the master plan, we need to have those CEQA findings kind of prepared and ready to go before it gets to council. Staff are looking to potentially kick off that environmental review in the next year, if there's funding that allows for it. That concludes my report. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Any questions? I have some questions. Samantha, so you're fully aware of the public safety problems that we're having at San Gregorio, correct? I mean, after all, Ruth Martin has come to us for well over a year or two, showing us videos of people walking in the street, no sidewalks, there's only one entrance and to get in and out. And you could see people carrying baskets with kids and skateboards and bicycles and all that stuff. That certainly is a public safety issue with all the traffic coming and going from parking lots, including the cars that are parked inside for games, etc. So I'm asking you how, with these parks, with San Gorgonio, what is the city doing to mitigate the traffic and public safety problem?
So as I shared, the traffic engineer staff went out and did a traffic study. Their findings is what council approved. I can't comment on the safety of the street because I'm not a traffic engineer, but their findings found that they made some modifications to some of the red curves to reduce some of those blind spots that come in and out of that egress. That was within a suitable traffic layout, if you will. I know that there's concerns about the lack of sidewalks. There are sidewalks on the residential side. And again, I am not in public works, I'm not an engineer who manages those projects. But at this point, based on the studies that have gone on, there's not been a recommendation to install a sidewalk along those sides.
I think we should probably look into that. I'd like to make a motion that we invite the traffic engineers in to give us an education about this.
Okay, so
Since this is a very important
in order to
process.
make a motion, we're gonna have to put that on a future agenda,
Yeah.
since it's not on this.
Okay, thank you. Would you remind me at the end of the meeting to do so?
There's a section called new, agenda items.
Thank you.
Towards the end, we'll hit you up then.
I have a couple of questions.
For me?
So on the traffic study that was done, and then those, that you mentioned about different recommendations that they had, to your knowledge, all those recommendations did get implemented?
Yes.
And then also, just kind of like more details about things you brought up about that the current hours of operation, or deciding we need to change those. What are the current hours of operation for pickleball that are at that park?
That's a good question. I have to look on our website. They changed it, so it doesn't, Saturdays and Sundays it's 8 a.m. and I believe it's 7:30 Monday through Friday.
7 o'clock Monday through Friday until dark, and 8 o'clock Saturday and Sunday until dark.
Until dark.
I see, until dark.
And there's no lights at those courts.
I see. In many of our other parks, it's much later into the evenings.
All of our parks are open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So our field lights could be on until 10 p.m., but the pickleball tennis area does not
It's
have
closed
lights.
down.
It's closed down at dark, yes.
And then one last question. It's been brought up at other meetings about studies about noise levels and recommendations about noise levels. Is there anything specific about that you can explain to us from the history of specific things about noise levels? I know we...
Yeah, the council did commission a sound study for San Gorgonio Park. I don't know where that's at in the council's realm, so I'm hesitant to speak on it, because I believe that was, there's some studies that are still going on. I don't have any further information on the sound study, but if there's something, I'm happy to circulate it to the commission.
But it's on the council level, is where that's...
Yes, the council's been acutely aware and concerned about the problem as well.
Okay.
What was that word? Did you say concerned or unconcerned?
Concerned?
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, we have a couple of requests for public speaker for 6D. So I'd like to call concerned resident.
I don't know what's going on here, because my agenda says that this was supposed to be a discussion on the history of San Gorgonio Park, and it appears to be that 7 is to discuss the master plan. So why all this master plan is here now, I don't know, but I'll talk about that when it's actually brought up on the next item. So my concern is that it blows my mind that Ms. Wiley chose not to address what was asked for, which was her help and suggestions, and provide adequate information to you so that you can make decisions regarding the modernization or the fixing of wrongs at San Gregorio Park right now. I listened to it. I only have 3 minutes. Here's some of the things I think she should have told you. August 22nd, 78, Parks and Rec Commission states that Sanji will provide adequate parking for all but the heaviest user days, such as special events, 2 to 3 times a year, thus preventing unsafe conditions on neighborhood streets and minimize any impact. The videos I showed you is after the traffic study, but I'll discuss that more in the next update. Back in 2019, Commission approves 8 pickleball courts in San Gregorio Park, never addressing the 50 or so cars that will be coming and going all day, every day, the need for the extra parking spaces, the unsafe conditions on the neighborhood streets, or the impact to the quality of life of the residents. So back to 1978, the city's environmental assessment states that, which she failed to tell you, that the greatest noise-producing activities will be placed on the freeway side of the park to preserve the residents' peaceful enjoyment of their homes. Miley, if you put back the prior one, you'll see that those courts were placed as close to residents as was humanly possible. And this was done after the noise study, which she still has never admitted to you was done, that pointed out that the sound noise or the noise study of pickleball that she requested staff to do exceeded acceptable levels of noise. What do? They put 8 as close to residents as possible. This is the type of information that you folks need to know. But again, she doesn't want to bring this up. She doesn't want it brought to your attention. How can you make decisions when she hides what she wants to hide so that you don't know about these things? She knows darn well that that pickleball court should have never been placed there. She knows darn well that you were required, you the city, a CEQA. She has never done a CEQA on the pickleball courts. Did she tell you that one's needed? No. She picks and chooses what she wants you to know. Decisions have been made that have adversely impacted residents. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, second speaker, Amanda Q for agenda item 6D, History of San Gregorio Park.
So, it was Councilwoman Laura Ferguson who gave me the City of St. Clair master plan for beach restrooms, and it was placed on as an agenda item. But because there also is a City of St. Clement master plan for restrooms for parks. And one of the concerns that came out of the City of St. Clement master plan for beach restrooms is that there were certain recommendations that were not done. The master plan for beach restrooms identified short-term and long-term maintenance goals and upgrades, and one of the recommendations was to have a regular schedule for maintenance. The plans also offered ways to move toward compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act ADA requirements. This was to ensure the restrooms would be brought up to ADA compliance of Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. Last March, I was informed by the ADA compliance officer that this ADA transition plan had not been updated since December 11th, 2010. So, I'll just talk about all the plans and the feedback from the public. However, I'm surprised that none of the city staff really mentioned, about ADA requirements being in compliance. So, that's a concern, seeing all the changes or recommendations. We really have to focus on, 1, public safety, and then 2, being ADA compliance and being, up to federal standards. With all the changes, proposals from the residents and whatnot, when did this park become a regional park, or have that idea that we should put all these things, all these activities there in one area? Because it's residential, and I don't think it should be. It's not a regional park. Just recently I was at, I heard Supervisor Katrina Foley state, was complaining that Rancho Mission Viejo had given Casper's Park 8,000 acres of land, and she said, it's just sitting there, it's not doing anything. Well, it's a wilderness park. It's just, that's what it's supposed to do. It's just supposed to be there to maintain. It's just there to secure for future people and for the wildlife. So my concern is that we should really just keep it more as a park, more green, more open space than building and tearing down, cutting down trees. And, you know, Patricia Holloway did today and talking about being a city, tree city, and I think we should preserve trees. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so this time I think we can invite, I have a point of information before we go to motion. Sam? I believe Ms. Weinstein went to the restroom, but does this vote apply to abstention because she was within proximity to San Antonio Park?
Is it,
Yeah.
receive and file?
Well, so before we go to motions and voting,
I don't think it's a vote, right? This was to receive.
Yes.
No, oh.
Yeah, I didn't know that
so
there
it
was
doesn't
something
require
like
an
that.
It depends on what you guys are gonna vote on,
There's
and
any
it
vote
would,
on here.
I don't know that it matters.
So if it's just, if we go to motion for, to move to receive and file, the abstention doesn't play into effect, doesn't matter?
Well, if she's voting, then
But I don't
if
think.
Amelia can opine, I'm not sure exactly where she lives in proximity, I know she lives on that street.
Okay.
Amelia, it appears there's concern that
She's gonna demonstrate it for us.
This is my house, right? Whoa.
In the second house in.
okay,
I think
so,
that falls into,
yeah, that would, I guess, be within the boundaries. Might be best to abstain or recuse herself from the vote because of proximity.
okay. Okay, so now that we've got that cleared up, I would like to invite a motion.
I move that we receive and file the staff recommendation, or the staff report, I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
I have a substitute motion.
Okay.
I move that we hold this and come back with our next meeting with a complete detailed report of San Gorgonio history so that we can be better informed, considering the information that was given us tonight and previous nights and previous meetings from residents who do their homework and get their research. And I think it's very important for this commission to be fully aware of what's happening at San Gorgonio.
Is it history you want, Susan, or is it current events?
What is your question?
Is it history you want, or is it a current event
I
you
want
want?
the history from history, from when it started to now. We should know what's happened to that park, because the goal certainly seems to be to turn it into an industrial sports park. And that's not what those residents signed up for when they bought those houses. If we're being asked to give an
This is a
informed.
comment, not a motion.
That's a good point, thank you. Well, then I will make a motion to bring this back as a full item on the agenda with the history and all actions taken on, and about San Gorgonio Park.
Is there a second for Ms. Ambrose's amendment to the motion? Okay, without a second, we will revert back to the original motion from Errol. Rob, sorry. Okay, original motion by Rob Firestein to, just file, receive and file this report.
I guess I would like clarification. I guess I just don't understand that term and what that's meaning to us, because I just haven't been involved in those before.
It basically acknowledges that you heard the report, you received it, and there's no further action to be taken at this time.
Just that we have received the report, it's not
Correct.
any statement of agreeing to this or that.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so Rod has made the motion, Jennifer Elliott has seconded the motion, all in favor?
And have you asked me to recuse myself, or am I allowed to vote?
I think it's best if you recuse yourself, and I'd like to give the attorney's opinion and for
Abstain.
future issues.
Okay.
Abstain.
All right, so all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
So there's 6 ayes, all opposed?
I oppose.
Okay, so original motion passes to receive and file. 6-1 with Ambrose, I'm sorry, 5-1 with 1 abstention, Amelia Weinstein, and a nay from Ambrose. All right. The motion passes. Okay, so we can move into section 7, communications. Subsection A, Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Director Report. Part 1, site-specific master plan updates.
I'm pleased to report that we are currently looking to bring the full Steep Park package to the council for adoption in May. The environmental analysis was posted through the state clearinghouse, and it's reached its 30-day public comment period. So we've closed that out, and it will be moving forward to council. There'll be a public hearing that will be advertised to support that as well. I don't have any other updates regarding the other 4 sites at this time. You have a question?
Well, just, were there any environmental issues that were identified?
No, they found that the improvements to Steep Park were low to minimal impact. The other update I want to provide is regarding lifeguards. I know that this has been an ongoing conversation for our pools, and as is great news with the summer, we get an influx of staff. So I'm really pleased to report that we'll be able to get our pools open certainly during the middle of the day and potentially longer, kind of reopening. We have a hiring fair on April 1st. Do you need to pause?
Yeah, we need to pause and go back to section 1. We have a
Okay,
speaker.
okay.
Thank you, Terry.
So, okay, so we do have a request for speaker, concerned resident, section 7A1, site-specific master plan.
I want to get home too. Okay, so San Antonio Park, as you were just informed, is considered a community park. It is not a regional park, and it is very, very important that each of you know the difference between those 2 designations. Sanji is a great asset to the city, but it does not have infrastructure to accommodate the listed items on the master plan update. There is no reason to put all of this in Sanji. The city has, about 20 other parks, which are not located off a block-long residential street without a through sidewalk. And yes, she'll tell you there's a sidewalk, and I want any of you to come and walk the sidewalk with me, please. But if your intent is to make Sanji into a regional park, that's fine. But you need to put the access off of Avenue Vaquero, which is what she didn't tell you was the recommended access to the park in 1978. The only reason it was put on a quiet residential street was it was cheaper. Not recommended, cheaper. With the installation of pickleball, Sanji is clearly becoming a regional park. It's now attracting out-of-towners, even out-of-staters. Just ask the San Clemente Pickleball Ambassador and our mayor, who boast of the number of out-of-towners who are in Sanji on a regular, daily basis, making it a regional park. There is no way a community park located off a small residential street was designed and engineered for this type of activity traffic. At the last traffic study that she mentioned, over 70% of the cars on New San Gregorio are people accessing the park. That was over 5,000 cars a week. Did she tell you that? No. The recommendations that they made did not improve the traffic or the safety. The only thing that can improve that is by you folks putting in the appropriate amount of activities that the community park
off a residential street can handle. Passive recreation, yeah, that was part of the plan. That's families throwing frisbees and flying kites, and even just reading a book under a tree. Since pickleball started, and with the annoying loud noise and rowdiness, you don't see these family activities anymore. Who would want to sit down and read a book or fly a kite next to that rowdiness? Have you been up there to see it? They climb 12-foot fences if it's not opened on time. Passive recreation is going to cease. And what about the green area? Doesn't a park deserve green area? A sports park, not so much. A community park, yes. What's going to happen to our green space? The plan, the second plan that 3 of you voted on, is going to take up green space and turn it into concrete for pickleball courts, skateboarding. Let's talk about skateboarding. Can you picture kids on skateboards riding down a 14% grade on San Gregorio and ending up in Via Avenida Vaquero? There's no sidewalk for them to ride on. Skateboards do not belong on this park.
Your time is up, please. Thank you. All right, so we can revert to 7A, Part 2, now that we've had public commentary.
Okay, so we, as I mentioned, we held a hiring fair. We were able to secure 27 hourly staff, and 14 of those were pool lifeguards, which was great news. We're excited to reopen our facility to the public for access this summer. I also want to provide an update. At our last meeting, the commission requested to hear more about the installation of a water bottle refill station at T Street, and I'm pleased to share that we will be able to install that at the T Street restroom, and maintenance is going to be able to do that in the current fiscal year, and they hope to see that kind of roll out in the next 2 to 3 months. So the commission's aware, it'll be a very similar bottle refill station that's currently at all of our park sites and on our pier. That is done for reasons of maintenance, that way multiple parts can be ordered. Unfortunately, there's oftentimes vandalism to those stations, so when we have similar units, it makes it easier to repair it. So that's great news. There's no need to look at grant funding or anything like that. We're able to absorb that cost within our existing operating budget. And that's all I have for my updates, unless the commission has questions.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you.
Can I ask Samantha a question? Hey, the restrooms at the base of the pier, they are not usable, and I just wanted to know where we are with getting those repaired.
Yeah, we don't have the findings yet from our fire inspector, so it's still pending on what that looks like. The cause of the fire is still under investigation.
Oh.
And anything coming from there, there's gonna be insurance involved and things like that, most likely. So, there's porta potties currently, and as soon as the project can be repaired, it will be. I don't have time on that.
Summer's coming up,
Yeah.
and I know there's porta potties next to it. Thank you.
Can I ask a procedure question? It's 10 minutes to 9. Do our meetings need to end at 9?
They do, unless there's a
Agenda
motion,
items we have left.
unless there's a motion to continue.
Unless there's a motion to,
So I'm just asking you to keep in mind, there's 10 minutes left of our time.
okay, well, we do have one more card that just came in under 7A, so I'd like to bring Amanda Q up.
Sorry, I had placed one in, and I think that it wasn't given to in time. So I'm concerned about 2 items. One is that Director Wiley had mentioned that the EIR was already out for Steve Park. When was there proper notification, and what for the public to submit comments? For most of the people that are on the committee right now, I spent 6 years of my life fighting to protect our city from toll roads, Elizabeth Jones Parkway Extension, and managed lanes coming through our city. And I fought tirelessly with a lot of people, and as well as Councilmember Ward and Senator Pat Bates. So I'm just really concerned of what measures were done to inform the public that the EIR for State Park was available for people to make public comments. Because when the HOV lanes, for addition of HOV lanes from Pico to the San Diego County line, the OCT did its due diligence to have a meeting at San Clemente High School regarding that, a scoping period, and then they also had one for a teleconference. And so that was pretty publicized, and people got the word out, and people did submit their public comments on that. So I'm really concerned why there wasn't any kind of feedback or any kind of knowledge, or not feedback, was this printed, was this in the San Clemente Times, that the EIR was available for people to submit their public comments? And so I'm really concerned that wasn't done. And if it was, I surely didn't know about it, nor a concerned citizen. And also, I'm hoping that we can revisit the proposal for the master plan for San Gregorio. I mean, I know it's now on 7A, site-specific park master plan updates, but because we have the new EIR, I think it needs to be brought back here to discuss really what the environmental review really actually included. And because what are the environmental impacts? Where are the sensor receptors? This needs to be discussed at a more formal level, not just to give a little two-sentence report on the EIR. I mean, the EIR are pretty lengthy from what I remember reading one from the TCA. They were pretty long. So I'm really concerned why it's just really mentioned very nonchalant, very passé, and it should really thoroughly be discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think we can move to section 8, and let's try to get this in time. We can make a motion to.
Because for equity, I was gonna say make a motion and bring up all 3 committees at the beginning of our next meeting. Because what if you only get one committee report in and can't get the other 2 in? But that was just my thought, that's all.
No, I just have some date sensitive, 2 things that are date sensitive to the rest I can carry over.
Okay, or we can motion to adjourn the time, to fix the adjournment
Correct.
till 9:10. If anyone wants to do that. Let's just go ahead and move forward for now and see what we can get through. I don't have a whole lot of things. So section 8A, subcommittee reports. We'll start with section 8A1, coastal items.
Okay, I'll start with this. You may all know that the City Council approved joining again the Wyland National Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation. And instead of reading all this or giving you a lecture right now or even information, we have information on the counter back there that will fill you in on all of this stuff. So that's my number 1 thing. And that happened, that approval to join up happened on March 21st of this year with the City Council. Secondly, I want to let you know about, and I want to repeat this, Earth Day beach cleanup for the city down at the pier, April 22nd, 9 a.m. Be there if you can, otherwise it doesn't always have to be a beach. It can be parking lots, it can be around your neighborhoods, etc. And I will defer my other things that aren't time sensitive. Doreen has a long list, and about 5 of those were on my list as well, so Doreen, go for it.
All right, I'll try to go really, really quickly. So, couple of updates. So, as far as the Capitol Beach project that's going on, we've got an update from OC Parks. So they're waiting on confirmation of funding, and they're applying for additional funding from NIFWA for coastal resilience funds. So that's hopefully moving forward. The regional coastal resilience plan that the city of San Clemente has been participating on is moving along. The draft report should be ready this month, and the next stakeholder meeting is anticipated in June. And the city is a stakeholder and should be able to comment on that document when that comes out. The next thing, and this is really good news, I talked to OC Public Works, so that's part of Orange County, or the County of Orange, and they are working on a set of opportunistic permits for sand placement for any beach in Orange County. So that's really good news for us, because we could pretty much piggyback on their permits and get sand on our beaches. They're still over a year away from getting the permits, but they've been working with, they've had meetings with Cecilia and Kyle on that. There's also other free sand sources that they have that we could explore the city, and I've sent those along. The other thing was there was a Songs Artificial Reef Public Workshop on April 5th with Commissioner Ambrose and myself. Attended that meeting, so good news on that. There's 373 acres of artificial reef and it's performing very well. Let's see what else. There's a assembly bill. Assemblymember Davis introduced a bill on shoreline erosion control, so she's going to be looking at ways to increase natural sediment supply, something we talked about earlier in the meeting today, and identify which areas are critically eroding. That bill is currently in committee. I'm thinking what I could do is maybe just forward, can Miley forward this on, like what I wrote up, just to everyone, just so they have it, so.
That's a good idea.
In the interest of time.
Yeah, you can just send it to Melanie and
Okay. So I'll just pause on the other items, and then,
And Jermaine, that bill that you mentioned, we may want to consider recommending the city council take a look at.
Okay, so you're gonna delay A?
I mean, we have 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So unless we could do it quickly, to a point, because this is something I brought up last meeting, so Save Our Beaches, the local advocacy group, I've been doing a lot of work with them and attending a lot of meetings they've asked me to come to. And so I would like to have an official liaison between DPNR and Save Our Beaches.
Well, if you recall at our last meeting, your motion was declined, and there was not a second, and my motion was not seconded either. Hence, that makes both of our motions dead, and it's done and over. This is on the agenda because the person who was the person who was taking down the notes and putting them into minutes saw that this would be on a future agenda. It shouldn't have been on the future agenda, it should have been removed when it went null at our last meeting.
That wasn't my understanding. My understanding was that it couldn't be brought up because it wasn't on the agenda, and there couldn't be any motion made. And so that's why it's on
No,
today.
That's all I recall.
we couldn't get into discussion. You are about 2 minutes away, so we either need to continue the meeting forward or decide that we're gonna bring some items back at our next meeting.
Okay,
I move that we bring this back if we have to. I think we should look at it as a Brown Act issue as well, and, because I have to leave at 9 o'clock.
oh, she has already 9 o'clock. Okay. So motion made by Susan Ambrose to table section 8 and section 9, section 8, section 8, A and B to the next meeting.
I second the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Okay, so motion passes to table section 8 to the next meeting, or next regular meeting. And,
Motion to adjourn?
yes.
Second.
Well, I was gonna just give a recap on, I'm supposed to say, Susan motioned, Amelia seconded the motion, passed unanimously. Okay, now, on to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Any seconds?
Second.
Seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so this meeting is unanimously adjourned to the